Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Klint, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in today. Oh, you're almost there to the weekend. You can smell it, sunshine in the air. You're going to have great plans, no doubt about it. So I hope you're having a good one this week and getting through ably and well. We got today a subject near and dear to my heart. I think as much as anything, it's going to be, if you want to, we're trying to pull a lot of different keys on this team for the upcoming season and what it's going to take for this team to get to a contending status. And we've gone through a variety of different things, individual players, the schemes and how those are going to develop and evolve, the defense and what it's going to need to do in a lot of ways, kind of, carry things in certain respects on this team, that this is what you're going to kind of lead with. But running the rock and stopping the run, or if I'm going to have to kind of pull two things from all of these things we've kind of covered here over about the last 2 months in regards to this team and setting the stage for that potential contending run, stopping the run, which we covered on a particular show and looked at deeply, is going to be a big part of the success of this upcoming season. If you're able to do it, stop the run, get teams into more of those third and longs, get them into more of third and longs. You're going to get more of Mike Macdonald's simulated pressures, stacked fronts, just more of his shenanigans that he's able to unleash. First, when you get into more of the third and threes and the third and twos, which you are going to if you're able to consistently run the ball on early downs. But the flip side of this is also going to be very true, and even more so true than just a couple of factors that make it true. For instance, I showed and presented to you guys a couple weeks ago the fact that rushing and running and being committed to running has come forward over the last couple of years with the cover two shell defenses. And so you've got to now run the ball because defenses are essentially trying to take away the pass, and they're in a lot of ways taking away the pass, sort of leaving a door cracked open for you to then be able to run the ball on the back of trying so ardently to stop that passing game. So it's a little bit of as far as the trend and the way this goes. It's also, though, the way that you've put this team together and the structure of things. Teams are put together in different ways, and everybody wants to run the ball, but there are teams that lead in different directions, like lead with their superstar quarterback. A Rams team wants to run the ball, but they're going to go as far as Stafford's going to take them. They've invested a lot in the offensive line. They've given Kyron Williams money. They're going to go as far as Stafford's going to take them on that team. But with us and our team, I don't think it's as much as we're going to go as far as Sam Darnold will take us. And we're not doing that by the structure of it. It's not to say Sam couldn't eventually get to that point. I think we need to see more proof of it that he can be that kind of guy. But you're not making this the way that it has to go. And in fact, quite the opposite. If anything, you're sort of relieving a little bit of the pressure off the top of that quarterback versus other teams like a Rams, so it might put more of that pressure on them to have to succeed and carry more of the load to make it happen. So running the ball is certainly important from the standpoint of this is where the NFL is going. This is where NFL teams have to be moving towards right now in order to find success offensively. If you're just going to try to be a pass-happy team that, wants to throw the ball like 70% of the time, where have we seen that before? Where have we seen the results of that come down the pike before? Yeah, we don't want to be doing that again. And so this is yes, all those factors of this is where the trend's going to, this is what you have to do, defense is playing it this way, all of this is very true. But and then the structure of it, you're trying to structure your team up to be around the run, to protect the defense, to control the clock, play great special teams. So it comes together on that side of it too. But then we get the extra final part on that, being that this is the Shanahan-Kubiak scheme that puts so much on the ability to run the ball, and that this is such an important part of this offense. And it's kind of ironic, really, if you think about it, because the West Coast offense, when it was originally dreamed up by Bill Walsh and where it operated for probably about 2.5 decades, is that it was an offense that was created to pass to set up the run. So at that time in the mid-'80s, when the Niners kind of brought this into play, running the ball was everybody was running the ball, and it was a 3-yard and cloud of dust. You're going to run on first down, you're going to run on second down, and then maybe you'll pass on third down if you have to. That was kind of a general consensus out there. Well, Walsh came in there and said, why run the ball on first and second down and pound my head into a brick wall because teams expect us to run. They know we're going to run. They're going to get their personnel in there to stop the run. Instead of that, why don't we pass on early downs, get those defenses used to us throwing the ball short and just getting easy, quick completions, and then we will come back to run the ball once we've pulled that defense away from the line and allowed ourselves to be able to actually have some room to operate down there as far as our blocking goes and holes for our running backs to be able to go get free. And now you've seen is the evolution of the sport. Part of what makes the sport so much fun is it's always changing. It's always moving. Even a scheme like the West Coast offense that started like this with the onus upon passing first and then run later on. Many of you remember Mike Holmgren teams in the Seahawks in the early 2000s, where this is exactly what he would do. He was very much a Bill Walsh acolyte, where he would go into games and he would be out there a little bit pass happy to start things. And then by the time you got in the third quarter, then you'd start to run the ball a little bit more. I think what happened, though, to these West Coast offenses and why Shanahan adjusted this and Kubiak's adjusted this is because of the fact that teams kind of caught on to that. Defenses started to realize if you're a West Coast offense, you're going to try to be throwing the ball more. And so the evolution starts, It's the tit for tat. Offense does this, defense does that. Then the offense adjusts to this way, then the defense adjusts that way. And we just keep turning and spinning and turning and spinning and turning and spinning and never stops. So now we're back over to where we are with Shanahan and Kubiak's scheme, which is now we're going to be willing to run on early downs. We're going to get back to a little bit of old school football and understanding that we want to be in those third and makeables, because just like defensively, it's the same coin. It's the same coin, just two sides of it. Just like defensively, you want to get into 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 10s, and you want to be living in that place. Offensively, you want to be living in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, or not even get down to 3rd downs if you can possibly do it. But if you are in a 3rd down, then it's a 3rd and short. So the very reasons of Mike McDonald's defense, you're able to simplify things for the defense across from you, and it's a lot more manageable of a 1st down. On top of this, offense is built upon moving the ball, keeping the chains moving. It's not about the big shot down the field, and this is going to be probably a pretty big major change for Seattle Seahawks fans in being here under the Coach Carroll offense and then being under the Grubb offense throughout the last 15 years or so, because there's been so much more upon trying to take those shots down the field. The cool thing with Kubiak is that he does have the one little, I think, separating part of him versus LaFleur, versus Kyle Shanahan, versus other guys that have come from this tree, in that he does like to take his deep shots, but he's just not going to try to live with it like we've done in recent years, where that's a real big part of what you're doing. Hammer the A and the B gap and then take your big shots over the top. That's not going to be the way that he's going to operate. He will put it in there throughout the game, but it's going to be tactically put in there, not that this is just what we do. It's hopefully catching the defense with their pants down in those kind of situations. But you create that by running the rock. That's what you've got to do here. The commitment's got to be there, and you've got to be effective at it. The good news is there's a lot of reason to believe that they're going to be much more effective at it. I'm going to present some data that hopefully can kind of support this a little bit. But one extra layer that I wanted to put on top of this, and the place where you're going to make your headway in running the ball, is going to be either running it out of that 12 personnel, or you're looking at more of like the 21 personnel type thing, where you're looking at having the 2 backs in a 1 tight end situation, going back to the I formation kind of looks back in the day. These are going to be the 2 type of formations you're going to really utilize to run the ball. And we've definitely utilized our share of 2 tight end sets here recently to a degree. Waldron was a little bit more in favor of it. I feel like Grubb would do it, but he was more into getting the receivers on the field than always having the tight ends out there. But 2 tight ends, or you have the fullback and a 1 tight end, you're going to go a little bit more heavier up front on there to set the stage to be able to run the ball. And so this is going to be an important part too, as well, in addition to all these other things that kind of build up to why running the ball is important, because you're going to be in this formation a lot. And I played this soundbite a couple of, I think it was about a week ago when I was looking at Seahawks stopping the run. It's a quick little 90-second soundbite from Nate Tice. And so if I'm repeating this for some of those that had already seen the deal, I'm sorry about that, but I think that this is pertinent in today's discussion. Nate Tice is, of course, the son of Mike Tice, one of the better tight ends in Seahawks history. For a long period of time, he was kind of the number 1 tight end in Seahawks history for a good many years. Very good, complete player, head coach for the Vikings after his career was over with. And Nate is very well versed in the game. He's grown up the game. He's been in that, been on the coaching staff there in Minnesota, I believe. And so he was taking note a little bit of this 12 personnel uptick that we're seeing. More of the 2 tight end looks out there in the league. And the Seahawks are going to, of course, be leaning into this. As it stands right now, you've got like 5 tight ends on your roster. You've got probably 3 quality ones. So they're definitely going to be leaning into this. But let me play a really quick little note here of Mike, because I think it's such a cool little tidbit here, and it can give you a little bit of a view into how they're going to run the ball this year and find really good effectiveness, hopefully, on the back of it.
Tight ends are going to be a thing, and not just a guy or just like one guy getting used in a certain way. Groups of tight ends, the personnel groupings, tight end-centric offenses are going to be a thing this year. And I know tight ends have been the biggest thing, the next big thing since Nam, and I get that, or at least the first Gulf War. But I see just a big push of multi-tight end looks, and because I think the versatility has been unlocked, we're getting more tweeners, and receiving tight ends have more of a role now than they used to, because I think offensive play callers have become more creative. They've realized, oh, we can do this with you and we can't do this with you, but we can find creative ways to make sure we only do the things we can do with you. But last year, 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, highest rate of 12 personnel on record since 2013, according to True Media. That's as far back as I can look it up. 22.1%. Only 3 seasons in the last decade have been above 20%. Plays with 2 or more tight ends on the field. So that's 13 personnel, 14 personnel, 22, all this stuff. 7.6% of football plays in the NFL last year featured 2 or more tight ends. That is the highest rate ever. And I can look this one back to 2002. We saw more tight ends on the field than we ever have last year in 2024. Everybody kept saying tight ends are coming, and it finally happened. We've all moved on, but tight ends are here. And there's a real reason for this. Defenses are lighter. Defenses are more comfortable being in sub, being in nickel, being in dime. So this is a way for offenses to get more beef on the field, but not just losing, and not just pure Mercedes Lewis types or Chris Manhertz types, more Trey McBrides, more guys that are in between that could be receivers as well as blockers, more balanced players.
So there's a big uptick last year. This is a trend that's been going in this direction over the past couple of years. Over 20%, 12 personnel looks, 2 tight end looks last year, but then the additional of the 7-8% with teams in the 3 tight end looks or with the fullback in the field and essentially kind of your I formation sort of looks with your personnel packages you're bringing out. So almost a 30% range that you're going to be operating within this look. Why it's happening is because we have the cover 2 shell, as Nate spoke about. The cover 2 shells come in here. With the cover 2 shell, though, it's come in tandem with defensive fronts stretching out in a really major way, and stretching out at times to create some really off-balance defensive fronts that they've got to operate off of. Seattle does a little bit of this as well, where you've got your 1 tech and your 3 tech, and then you've got your not just wide 9s as far as where they're aligned, which is outside the shoulder of the tackle. They do it an extra step, and they'll, what I call the wide 10, they'll move them that extra yard even further laterally on the line of scrimmage. So you end up with 2 guys in tight, and you end up with 2 guys out wide. Now, when you bring out the 2 tight end sets, at that point, you can isolate on duo blocks, combo blocks, either the edge or you get back to the linebacker, because you can double up on the edge essentially, and you can single block the 3 tech or 1 tech in there at that point, and create a nice instantaneous hole in there. And that defensive tackle better get there, because the double team at the point of attack off the edge is going to get some movement. They're going to get some push down the football field there. Those are going to be 2 pretty good blockers on that edge. Say nothing if the edge is maybe a little bit deficient in stopping the run, that maybe he's out there to rush the passer instead, and now you can really go out and attack that. So when you put the 2 tight ends on either side like that, and you get a little bit of the stretching of the defensive line, you can isolate players, especially on those double team blocks. And what's kind of key about this is you're running a lot of, at times, power downhill. So I know wide zone is where the scheme has kind of lived recently with Shanahan and Kubiak and LaFleur, and that they really like a lot of that wide stuff. But we have seen the transition occur over the last couple of years of more of the inside power runs. So you find your combo blocks on an A gap, a B gap run, hammering it right up the middle, and maybe you're not going to get those big 15, 20, 25 yard runs, but you should be able to consistently churn out the 4, 5, 6 yard runs on the back of that, because the defense is scrambling. And because, as you've set this up defensively, you've essentially walked up to the offense prior to the snap with your alignment, with your cover 2 shell safeties, and you've said to that offense, okay, look, we're not going to let you beat us deep, number 1. Number 2, we are going to try to restrict your passing lanes, and we're going to try to close those passing windows up as we absolutely possibly can. But then we also know within this that we are leaving a little bit of a weakness then up front. We're a little bit lighter up front to be able to deal with those bodies. And then you get into the gap and a half technique that these defenses are running to try to overcome that, which is tricky. But it does give the offense then that advantage to try to lean into this. And this is where we come to Seattle now. A.J. Barner, good inline guy, very, very good blocker, fairly complete tight end, what he showed for me last year. Noah Fant's not as much of a grade A blocker, but he's passable at it. He can go out there and get that done for you. I don't think Arroyo is going to be a great blocker, but he certainly was willing on tape. And you've, of course, brought in Robbie Oots as well. So you brought in really the personnel to make sure that you can run this and run this pretty consistently throughout the course of the year. But it's going to be a big part of how Seattle runs the ball this year, is off the back of that 12 personnel and how effective they can be on the back of that. I think Kubiak's scheme and the zone-centric nature of this run are going to help a variety of players here on this offense to be able to be improved. We're hearing a lot about Bradford being in his best shape, and that he seems to like maybe the lights come on fully, and he's got himself to where he's ready to kind of fulfill the potential that he sort of had, or we thought he had when he was coming out of college. There was a really raw 4th round pick. He seems to be good. We know with Christian Haynes, he was probably better suited to a zone scheme that he ran out there at UConn. And so he's probably going to fit to this a little bit better on that side of it too as well. Zabel can absolutely do this stuff, whether he's at center or at left guard. So you've got the personnel, both tight end, offensive line-wise. Lucas and Cross both can do the movement in space. There's going to be a lot of pulling in this stuff too as well and getting guys out in front. And so you got to be able to have the mobility. You got to be able to hit the reach blocks. You've got the personnel that can do it. You've got the system in here to do it at the right time for where the NFL is at as far as how they're stopping the run and how much running the ball is as important. You know, if this was, you're bringing a Shanahan in maybe like, 8 year or a Kubiak in like, 5 years ago, even when the passing was starting to go, we're right on the edge of the let Russ cook era, right before Fangio's stuff clicked in, maybe not have been the greatest of timing, but the timing right now is right. I think that this is going to continue to be leaning into this direction where until teams will snap out of the cover two shell looks and get back to willing to bring down the safety into the box to give them an extra man to help out in defending the run, especially when they get the heavier looks from the offense, like 12 personnel, like 21 personnel, you're going to continue to see running the ball rising to the surface. So there's a lot of different reasons why running the ball this year is going to be important. It's where the league is going. It's a bit of the key to this scheme working and running right and properly, where the scheme is modernized from where it began from Bill Walsh in the Mike Holmgren days, where running the ball first and foremost has got to be what you do to then set up the pass. You're also not going to be a team that's going to be able to live playing from behind. That's not where we want to be at with this team. You want to be ideally you'd like to get up on teams and then let your defense really go crazy. But you want to bare minimum keep yourself in these games. There's going to be some grindy games probably this year with the nature of this offense, but this is all part of the plan. When you're going to lean on running the ball, you're going to have your defense that hopefully can get to top 10, maybe top 5 state, and a great special teams. This is just the way that this kind of recipe comes out into be. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of heart attack Hawk games probably again this year, but it's all part of the plan. And if you can run the ball consistently and control the clock, it's going to be a little bit like jiu-jitsu on the football field, where you're rolling around and it's fighting back and forth, and you got his arm, they got your arm, and then you're just kind of working out like Nurmagomedov, that guy that was really great in UFC and then he retired, and he just get in there and over a course of 2 or 3 rounds, he just maul you. It wasn't going to beat you instantaneously. He was going to hit you with a punch right from the jump and drop you. But after 2 or 3 rounds, you're going to be completely exhausted, sweating, just wanting to go home, and then he just taps you out at that point. And that's pretty much what you're going to hopefully get with our offense this year, is we're just going to tangle with you for a couple of quarters, eventually wear you down, control the clock. The defense on the other side of it will hopefully be suffocating, and then this is the approach for this offense to find success this year. This is the way that you take flight and be really effective at it. You don't have to be a team, by the way, that is limited in how many points you score at that point, especially this year with the 35-yard line kickoff rule, which is just another thing that helps this. You could run the ball and you can be consistent in that, and then you could be consistent in moving the chains. A couple of first downs now with this new kickoff rule. A couple of first downs every drive. You're in field goal range. And then you have a guy in Jason Myers who's got the 55, 56, 57, 58-yard leg to knock those field goals through. And because of the nature of the beast being that there's going to be those tight games, jiu-jitsu on the football field, every point you're kind of scoring, you can just kind of incrementally take yourself up over the top if that's what you have to do in particular games. And what I'm expecting on a lot of these games, that to be the case. Finding some red zone effectiveness, having a guy like Jalen Milroe as a red zone, weapon down there potentially is going to be maybe really huge on this. But all comes back down to running the ball. You can't be pass happy. You can't expect Sam Darnold to be leading this through with his arm, and especially with where your pass protection's been in recent years. Because if you get too pass happy, I don't even think with Shanahan or Kubiak's scheme that he's going to be able to correct or fix the pass protection stuff if it ends up going into that direction of things. So all roads lead back to you've got to run the rock this year. It's not a matter of optional. It's not a matter of, well, if we can get around to it, or we'll kind of keep a little bit of balance, but we really want to throw the ball. You've got to run this year. It's got to be what you do, and you got to be effective at it. And if you're not, the team is not going to get particularly far. A stat I want to show you guys that just kind of sums up a little bit of this and also gives you hopefully a little bit of optimism in regards to why I think that this is going to not only improve this year on the back of just Kubiak coming in and making more of a point of emphasis, having Benton in here, getting a little bit more offensive line talent, coaching these guys up. I think all of that is going to definitely help out. But there's some reasons to look at some of the statistics here recently in the rush game, both for the Seahawks and the Saints, to also pull away from that some reasons as to why you can find some optimism here that not only is this going to be a point of emphasis, but it's going to be a successful point of emphasis, that you're going to find some headway and some room. Go back to 2023 for your Seattle Seahawks. Rush yards per game, they were 28th in the NFL. Rush yards per play, 16th. Rush EPA per play, 14th. So you're miserable with the rush yards per game, but you're kind of efficient at it, middle of the road in your efficiency, better than where your rush yards per game were in 23, right? 24, 28th in rush yards. Once again, rush yards per play, 17th. Rush EPA per play, 10th. So these 2 years, you're back of the barrel as far as how your rushing yards are at per game, but your effectiveness and your efficiency at it, actually not that bad. Okay. So there would seem to be on those, I'm not saying take it away as an ultimate, but in some general terms and looking at those stats, you'd say, oh, well, this is an offensive line that has a little bit of an issue with commitment to running the ball. And I don't know if we can say as much on that in 23. I think you were kind of behind in certain games a lot of times, and you're kind of having the defense was really kind of sucking wind in 23, and that affected some of that. That wasn't as much of the case, I don't think, in 24. But it is the case in that both of those 2 years, you were a lot more efficient in how you ran the ball than you were in the yards per game that you were kicking out. And so a guy coming in with a system that's going to put more of the onus on running the ball, that's going to coach these guys up and get them better developed in how they can be effective in their blocks and what they're doing with that, and how he calls the game and sequencing of plays is going to also help and alleviate that. But there's also some of this that's just built into me for improvement. That's just really, these stats to me scream out with 23 and 24. Stay committed, damn it, to running the ball. Just stay committed to it. These are commitment issues as much as anything to me on this, as it is that we don't have the line that can run block or get after it in that way. So then this is also aided when you go over and you take a look at the Saints. The Saints in 2023, before Kubiak came in there, rush yards per game, 21st. Rush yards per play, 31st. Rush EPA per play, 17th. So not the same kind of situation necessarily exactly to what Seattle was dealing with, where the efficiency was great with the Saints and the rush yards per game is almost a little bit of an inverse, where your rush yards per game were better than what the Hawks had been the past 2 years, but your efficiency wasn't as good as the Hawks' efficiency of the past 2 years either. Not really. Kind of close on the second stat, but definitely nowhere near on that first stat. So what did Kubiak do in his first year coming into the Saints? How did these numbers bear out from where they are right there? 14th in rushing yards per game. 14th in rushing yards per play. 10th in rush EPA per play. So thinking about this a little bit, just considering this, he did this, number one, instantaneously. A lot of OCs, the whole going thing out there is that you got to get an OC in there and they need to have this first year to kind of get their system in place and get everybody understanding the ins and outs, and that you can't expect immediate returns with these kind of guys. Shanahan going to the Falcons in the first year as an offensive coordinator. Him and Matt Ryan kind of butted heads, couldn't kind of quite see eye to eye. It took him a little bit of time, but by year 2, the offense is flowing. Matt Ryan's an MVP. But what you have with Kubiak is, on a Saints team that he's walking the door on, immediate improvement from walking in that door. No wait needed to be had, at least as far as rushing the ball. And quite frankly, this was also the case when it came to pass protection, and would have probably been the case with offensive effectiveness. But the other cool part about this stat is that Saints team by about halfway into the year had lost pretty much, 50, 60% of their offense? Many of their offensive linemen out, Carr done by game 7, Alvin Kamara injured by about game 5, and not really much of the same throughout most of the year at that point. Chris Olave, the hospital ball that Carr throws him, he's done for the year by that point. Yet still, with Spencer Rattler starting for you at quarterback, with not much as far as the past 2, with an offensive line that's got some backups in there that you're trying to get along, you still, by the end of the year, playing half of your season with that personnel, you still are able to get this measurable effect, this measurable impact of improvement from where you were the prior year. So in Seattle, you have the opening for efficiency when you look at the 23 and 24 season and how you ran the ball, just the lack of commitment and running to it. You've got the improved offensive line you're bringing in. You've got more of the drive towards the personnel of the 12 personnel and the 21 personnel, which will be bigger, which will be heavier, which should make it easier for you to run the ball, especially when considering you're going up against these defenses with the lighter box and the cover two shells on the backside. And then you have the offensive coordinator who's showing with his past recent history, and not just here with the Saints, but take him back with the Minnesota Vikings because that was his second stop as an OC. And he was also successful with the Vikings, both getting great play out of Kirk Cousins and finding effectiveness in how they ran the ball. So not just a flash in the pan kind of situation. But the Saints' place and the Saints' situation wasn't just set up for him to go find success last year. 31st in rush yards per play. You take that up to 14th in 1 year. So we're going to improve in our running game this year. We're going to be committed in running it. And you better believe that Kubiak knows what he's doing with Ben and the crew that he's brought in there, and that this thing has had 3 decades of being, kind of massaged and evolved into where it's at, and that you're going to find those rush yardage. And you've set the stage nicely here, not just by bringing in the coach, but making sure you have the personnel matched up to be able to run the scheme and run it pure as much as possible. We'll see on the talent of this offensive line. That's the big question about this crew as we go into this upcoming season is, are these guys going to be able to improve? Can Christian Haynes come forward from what was a pretty dark opening year? Can we see Abraham Lucas finally last a full season out there at right tackle? Is Gray's able going to be able to immediately walk in the door and give you some significant impact? We don't know about those things, but every other item that you can look at on this offense, from the coaching to the scheme, to the play caller, to the track record of an OC who actually knows what he's doing and isn't walking in here learning on the job for the first time, as we were doing with Waldron, as we were doing with Grubb, who had never been an NFL offensive coordinator, and it's a different game from being a college OC to being a pro OC. All that stuff's out the door now. You've taken care of all of those things that's in your control to take care of. Now it's just a matter of whether or not this talent comes forward and they can reach to the fruition of that. But that's the good news as well within it, is this scheme sets the stage for these guys to be able to look better just by the nature of it. It's less of a scheme that's driven on the back of you having to whoop your man's ass on the line of scrimmage. You got to get up on him and you got to knock him on his butt and you got to blow him off the ball and drive him 5 yards back. There's going to be some places that you're going to look for your linemen to do that, but a lot of the blocks here are going to be pin and pull blocks, are going to be just shield yourself around for a half second so we can get along the back through you. It's a lot of very detail driven in the run game on this, and those details are driven to kind of pull away less from, hey, just go get the job done. Just make it happen out there. Just be big and be a badass and knock that guy in his butt. It's a little bit less of that at times in this scheme. A little bit more, you could call it, I guess, finesse a bit, but not in a bad way. In a way that then helps your offensive linemen to perform better because it doesn't ask a tall as task of them as other schemes will ask of their players to have to get the job done in that way I just described. So a lot of reason to believe that this running attack is going to be improved and mightily improved at that. I think there's a lot of data to build into this. The key is going to be whether or not the talent can come forward, but you're going to have the commitment this year. We had multiple times last year where Mike McDonald was talking about in press conferences the fact that he would have liked to have run the ball a little bit more than they did. You're going to not see him do any of that this year. You are going to run the ball. And this style of brand of football, have a top 10 defense with maybe a top 5 upside to it. Have a grade A special teams unit where you're spending as much money in the kicker and punter position as anybody in the league. And then having an offense that can be efficient, can give you both, has some threats it can toss at you as far as the passing attack and the rushing attack, but is going to control the clock, is going to run the ball, is going to move the chains by the nature of what they are. It's going to be patient in their approach. And that all will go together. This is, I said this a couple of days ago, this is in last 5 decades of football, this style of football, this version of football teams is a version that can be mightily successful, that can go out there and go win the Super Bowl. And if you want some proof of this, look no further than when you just won a Super Bowl 10 years ago. You didn't do it with a superhero quarterback. Russell could do superhero things at times, and I would go beyond just saying he was just purely a game manager because his mobility and his legs early on there gave him a little bit of a difference-making element beyond just what you'd get from a game manager. That's to be for sure. But you weren't leading with that. That wasn't how you had to go win football games. You're going to play great special teams, you're going to run the rock, and then you're going to play great defense. And you went and got to back-to-back Super Bowls on the back of this very approach. It works. It works great in that stadium where inclement weather can come into play very often and games can get dirty and muddled up and get very simplified really quickly, like the Cardinals game at home last year, 16-6. neither offense able to do much. Rain, wind, blowing every which way, just becomes kind of who can run the ball better, who can not make the big mistake, who cannot throw that pick six like Kyler did in that game to allow you to go and get that win. That's how it can go in that stadium at times. And so having the kind of game like this that leans into that style of game, that style of attack, could be mighty beneficial for your Seattle Seahawks. You let me know, though. Am I off on this? Do you feel like running the rock is going to be as important as I believe it's going to be? Do you feel like it's going to be as much the key to this Seattle Seahawks defense? How you run the ball, how you stop the run. These are the two things that sit at the forefront of my mind and that I think will drive ultimately whether or not we're going to be successful this year or not. If we see ourselves getting into the playoffs and winning the division and making some noise in the playoffs, I all but guarantee you it will be that you stopped the run well and you ran the ball well. And likewise, you fall short of your mark. You're not able to get the playoffs once again this year. I think we'll look back on it and we'll say, man, we just couldn't find quite the right footing on stopping the run. We had too many games there where they were able to kind of get after us on it. And then likewise on the other side of it, just didn't find a footing in running the ball. Couldn't be consistent in doing it. I think it's going to be a major, major key to this upcoming season. But you guys let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you can for me today, please do hit that like button. You guys know I always ask, but I do appreciate it. It does help out the channel, helps me grow, helps me show, all that other stuff. You always want to be a shower, want to be a grower, not a shower, as they like to say. But thank you guys for hitting the like button. I hope you guys are having a great week out there, and appreciate all of the support and whatnot throughout this off season, as you guys have just been amazing on that. We're getting very close here to the season. I can almost taste it. People are giving Jake some hard time today. Feed me. I saw that about, I saw Doc's posted up Jake's take on the quarterback room. Oh goodness, that was hilarious. Jake's getting it from Hawk fans today. Hey, you're going to go with a hard take like that, Jake. You got to take the slings and arrows from it. That's all I got to say. Trenton says, hey, B, you the man. Go Hawks. Thank you, Trenton. Appreciate you, man. You the man as well. Trenton says, I hope Jake Bobo has a great preseason. He's been putting in extra work with Coop. Me too. I really do like Jake. You know, anybody's followed the channel here knows that he's definitely a favorite of mine. Blocks his ass off, plays hard. He's got some great ball skills. I think he can be a red zone weapon at times for you down there. Certainly was at UCLA a lot, and we haven't leaned into that as much with him because you've had guys to throw to, but he's going to have to fight his butt off. I think he's got as tough a path to get into that roster spot as ever before, but I think there's a good chance he can still find his way there to it. But real tough part here, Trent, is going to be that because you're going to probably carry those maybe potentially 3 tight ends and 1 fullback, you're probably going to have to pull from somewhere on the roster, 1 extra roster space. And I would think that probably would be the wide receiver position, which then even makes his trek to getting to the roster a little bit tougher. But Bobo's been a good player for us. And 3rd season coming in, you feel like he's going to be ready to be at his best, to show out at his best. And hopefully he can tap back into that kind of spirit of that first season where you went, ooh, we got ourselves maybe a player here. Seth, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. Little Dallas Cowboys, up, Brandon. Dak sucks. It's a fact. And your content is gold as always. Well, thank you for that, Little Dallas Cowboy. Sorry you're stuck with the Dak train. Hey, who knows? By the end of the year, maybe it's Milton time. Hey, it's Milton time, baby. Pop the top. It's Milton. It's Joe Milton time. You never know. Milton goes out there, Little Dallas Cowboy, balls out for you in the final 5-6 games. You guys flip Dak for a 3rd, 4th, and then you're back to have a nice cheap quarterback. It's good to see you though, brother. Dude, last year we marched down the field running the rock, then we went away from it and it sucked. 4 got which game? Shaking my head. Yeah, I think there's a couple games out there that I think you could point to on that one, Dune, and that was a thing that would drive you crazy about Grubb, and it's why I'm not sure what Grubb was thinking when you get to the point your head coach is in the press conference after the game and he's saying we should have run the rock more. It's a little bit like the scene in Casino, okay? And there's a scene in Casino where one of the mob kind of lieutenant guys is going over to Robert De Niro's character who's running a casino in Vegas for the mobsters. And things have been going a little bit rough for De Niro's character at this time. And there's been some issues caused and it's getting a little bit public. And the lieutenant comes to him and he says, the bosses say, maybe he should walk away. And De Niro's like, no, I can't. I can't walk away. This is what I do. I'm not going to walk away. And the guy goes, this is like a papal bull. This is them not just saying you should walk away. This is like the warning that if you don't walk away, this is going to get dark real fast on that side of it. And so when you have to compare this, you've got a head coach in a press conference saying, it would have been nice if we maybe would run the rock a little bit more. Coaches don't tend to do that. That's going to be a behind closed doors kind of thing. And it probably represented the fact that Mike had probably already with Grubb kind of brought this up already prior. Going, you need to run the ball, buddy. It wasn't that it just got to that point with him in the press conference. And so, Grubb still, after hearing those two pressers, still didn't have it like lock in or click into place for whatever reason. And I never quite could understand it with them. It is a little bit of the cliche, I will say, of the air raid kind of offensive coordinators, is that they hate to run the ball. That is the whole thing with them. That's been the kind of the joke through the years, is that they'll run for show, but they want to throw to go. That's how they go. And so he fit into the cliche to Grubb on that side of it. But, if a coach tells you, is saying in the press conference, you run the rock, come back the next week and run the rock and stay committed to it. And if you're doing it good, don't go away from it. Don't break if it's not broken. And that's certainly something that we saw from Grubb last year when it came to the run game. Dogzilla, we ran the ball with a little success in the second half, the second Cards game. Rest of the time we sucked when we tried. We had a couple of games I could point to, there was some success in it. You just didn't stay with it as much. I think that Dune's right on it. There's a couple of games in there that stood out where you just didn't, especially coming out the game and just throwing the ball over and over and over again, then eventually coming to the run. Matt says, thanks, Brandon. I need a bit of education. My pleasure, Matt. Thank you, man. Nick says, I know it's early, but wouldn't mind Jeremiah Love as a Seahawk. Well, running back might be more back into play as far as an early pick after this year. You have Kenneth Walker into a contract season. You got Charbonnet with only 2 years left. So, and we still don't know completely on Charbonnet's fit exactly to this offensive scheme. I think he'll be all right in it, but maybe there's a different type of back that they would look to go towards. Like Jeremiah Love might be that kind of guy. He's very fun. And he had that one run at the end of the year last year, I think in the playoffs, where he dumped like 7-8 guys that tried to tackle him before he got into the end zone. And he'd be a lot of fun to watch, Nick. Definitely cut from a bit of that Marshawn cloth. Kevin says, so CK took that New Orleans team from bottom third to top third. Sign me up. Yes, sir, he did. Yes, sir, he did. And that's a team that, there's some talent in offensive line. There's some aging talent. Ramczyk, I think this offseason just retired because of the injury situation. And had half the year without. That's the thing, too, is it'd be impressive, Kevin, wouldn't it, if he just had all of his offensive line starters mostly out there through most of the year. But that you basically had your offensive line for half a season, yet got that dramatic of improvement across the board. I think that's telling. And I don't think you do that by accident. Phoebe says, does Kubiak have any trick plays in his playbook? Historically speaking, the West Coast offense doesn't do a lot of the trick plays. Certainly not to what we were doing kind of last year here and there. No, it's one that tends to be, I think, pretty hesitant in its usage of that. Feed me. Old School Seahawk, thank you for 10 months as a Hawks Nest member. I thank you for that. And I promise, guys, I'm going to change my, I'm updating my front to get new members and whatnot in there on the scroll at the front of the show. So I'm going to definitely get in there. I'm a little slow on that. But thank you for that, Seahawk. Just love your channel and hope you're doing well, boss. I am doing phenomenal. Having a great off season here. I've really loved being able to do these daily shows as we've kind of changed up the content here and how we're doing it a bit. You guys have flowed right there with me in lockstep with it. I really appreciate that. We're going to carry these on into the regular season. And having a great offseason, man. Loving where we're going as a team. Love the patient approach. Love that they're building this intelligently and properly. But ready for a great summer too, man. I hope you're having an awesome one as well. Nick says, first red zone snap. I will love it if Milrow's on the field. That play doesn't have to go for him, just to have him out there so defenses are forced to pay attention to him. Agreed. I couldn't agree more, Nick. You get down to the red zone, things get really hard. We certainly know that throwing the ball gets absolutely ridiculously tough. Well, we have 4 red zone interceptions from Geno Smith last year, partly because you just couldn't run the ball. And so, you could throw the ball between the 20s, but you got inside the red zone, things get compressed. You're still trying to throw the ball. It just don't work. And you're onto something that I've been thinking about lately. And one guy that I think about a lot with this, certainly Jalen Hurts has been able to utilize some of this as well, is the Cam Newton. The read option stuff with Cam Newton down by the red zone. I mean, what did that guy get? 10, 15 rushing touchdowns a season at the height of his powers? And how much of that was, not him busting off some 40-yard run down the field but just inside the 7, read option keeper, goes and gets the 7 yards and then does a Superman dive over the top. I don't see why you can't do the exact same kind of stuff out there with Milroe in those red zone situations. I mean, it's just cut out really well. And it's so challenging because if you're going to run the read option down by the red zone, let's say you're in the 4-yard line, you bring him out there and you got a shotgun read option play. Your edges want to get down there to help out on the A and the B gap runs. They want to crash down the line of scrimmage. If they recognize it's an A gap run, I want to get down there and help out my boys inside. But the problem becomes is that if you got the quarterback with the keeper option, those edges have to kind of stand and hold for a moment before they can crash and make sure the quarterback doesn't keep the ball and take it around the edge. And so that's where you can make your running game more effective. Milroe then doesn't have to do anything. Just his threat then keep those edges at bay. And now you can have it just be purely, if we can get these guys blocked up front, these defensive tackles blocked up front, the edges blocked, we'll be fine. We'll be good to go. We got a touchdown. Old Greasy, you've been cranking these out. Awesome shows, B. Thank you, Old Greasy. I like doing this new style. Coming in and out like this is a lot of fun for me. I'm kind of enjoying this. Oh, kitty. Stop. Nick says, I love these midday streams. Gives me something to do at work at these slow afternoons. My pleasure, my brother. My pleasure. Steven, Schneider just had an interesting interview a few days ago. Your opinion? Yeah, it was a cool interview. I liked it as well. Middlecoff is the one that he just did there with it. I think that, he slowly is kind of elaborating a bit more and more, I think, around the DK and the Geno situation. And I think with the DK thing, it was something that had been coming up for a while with him requesting the trade. And I think it's a little bit of just DK also recognizing, that he mentioned legacy and stuff. And I think from DK's standpoint of that was the main thing I kind of glommed from that interview as much as anything else there, Stephen, was just, with DK and I understanding where he's at with this, I think you had him here 6 years. I think, 5 of those years, he wasn't the most targeted receiver on the team. I know that there's going to be people that will pick a DK to say, well, he never got his hands better. Well, the route running, and maybe there's some validity to some of that stuff. But I think from DK's perspective on this, it was also, I'm on a team here for the 6 years of my career. I've got, one more major contract to sign. My lifespan in the NFL is winding down a little bit. And, I'm on a team that hasn't, I don't think he does it with animosity or hate towards the Hawks, but just that I'm on a team not getting the most out of what I could bring to the field. And maybe I need to go to a different team to go and have that happen and be the case. On top of wanting to be paid a little bit earlier on in the offseason, which I think John would have wanted to have waited to more of the timeline to like what we just did Dixon on. If you're going to sign DK, it would have been more into the early June period than it was going to be the beginning of the offseason when you're trying to put your team together. So I think I understand where Schneider's come from with that perspective, and that's one of those things where a mutual parting of ways doesn't have to be where there's a bad guy all the time. It can just be that sometimes things just kind of reach the end of the road, so to speak, on that. But it was a cool interview, Steve, and I definitely encouraged by his process, talking a little bit about Darnold and what brought them there and his faith in him and Milroe. I liked his thoughts on it, and wasn't anything really super new information, but some of it was some stuff I would kind of have guessed about where he sort of stood on it anyway, and it was good. Some good questions in there as well. But yeah, it's always good to hear when John's talking because he doesn't do it often, so there's always some things you can start to be able to glean from his process and why he's going about the business in one way or the other. David 206 says, do you think Bobo even makes the roster? We got Cup, we got JSN. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is probably set to be on this team. In the past, you have kept 5 wide receivers. So we go, are we going to keep 4 or 5 this year? And if we keep 5, David, okay, we got Torrey Horton, and then you probably have Bobo. Boom, there's your 5. If you only keep 4, Cooper Kupp, JSN, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Torrey Horton. And it's going to be very hard for him to knock off Scantling and go overtake that because Scantling is going to be your deep threat. He's the guy to be there to stretch the defense a little bit. So there is going to maybe potentially be an uphill battle here for him, David, if they're going to not carry 5 wide receivers. And you're going to have to pull from something. We've not had a fullback on the roster in recent years. So if you're going to have the fullback, are you taking one less tight end? Or are you taking one less wide receiver? Especially considering we might have 3 active quarterbacks on game day. Might get a little bit sticky there for Bobo on this one, David, in all honesty. But hard to say just because we just don't know how they're going to allot the 4 or 5 wide receiver thing. I think if you got 5 receivers, he makes it. But if it's going to be 4, I think he's definitely got a bit of an uphill battle. Kendrick Lamar, what's up, man? How you doing? It's good to see you in the house. Nick says, Love also has really good speed. I love K9, but if he can't stay healthy this year, I can't see us re-signing him. It sucks because I think he has the talent to be a 7 to 10 back. I do too, Nick. 100% I do. I do think that there's an argument to be made from John's perspective on this, to where you could say, okay, John, you can sell me on value of running backs in the second round, being that running backs will typically, especially where the game's at right now, where running the ball is so important, they're not going to go in the first round. So if you're getting a second round running back, you're probably getting potentially a first round talent of a running back in that second round. That's good value. I don't care where the whole running back debate's at. That's good value. But I would say that I would draw the line on that, Nick, in signing guys and giving guys money and contracts. I think that doesn't tend to be good money spent on running backs, especially backs like a K9 that have a struggle to stay healthy. He's not going to probably get healthier on a new contract extension. So there's the argument there, Nick, that you just kind of wash, rinse, repeat it. You go get your second round running back or whatever, or maybe a back end first round guy if that's where Love's going to go. And then you ride him out through the rookie contract, and then you let him go after rookie contract and go get your next guy. And you just kind of keep spinning that through a little bit. There's maybe a bit of an argument to be made on that. And I will say, Nick, when you come back to Shanahan and you go back to Shanahan, the elder, the senior, and Shanahan, the senior in Denver, what he would do on a yearly basis is he would just flip through different running back after different running back. Once they lost Terrell Davis, you were going to get a new guy almost every year. And even when they got a real good replacement like a Clinton Portis that they took, I think, in the first round, and it was a dynamic back, the second they started to come up for a contract extension, they flipped him for Champ Bailey. So it's been an approach and a pathway of success that you can find in prior regimes going down this road. Just don't sign him, but you can draft him high. That part's definitely acceptable. Jeffrey Jones. It was only 11 years ago in 2014 when the Seahawks led the NFL in rushing with its over 2,700 yards and a 5.3 per play average, almost a full yard per play more than any other team. Fantastic stat, Jeffrey. Thank you for bringing that up. And this is why I say this is a pathway that can work. This is tried and true. This is a blueprint that absolutely you can go and find the ultimate success with. You don't have to be some try-hard team that's going to top out in the playoffs because you don't have the gunslinger who can rip the rock all over the football field. You got to just have the team with all 3 parts working together and being consistent. And if you can do that, it can take you as far as you want to go. That's a great stat there, Jeffrey. And it's like I say on this, if you don't think it can work, it worked 10 years ago, and it worked 10 years ago to the ultimate success, to back-to-back Super Bowls. Russell was a really great quarterback, but it was about the team that got you there. It was the team in full that got you there. It wasn't about star power driving everything. You had star power, but the star power wasn't the driving force. It was the team. It was everybody fitting into their roles. It was the offense controlling the ball, moving the rock, doing just enough. The defense being top line, elite, and special teams doing their part, all working together. David says, yeah, B, did you watch the Middlecoff's interview with Chider? I did. Yeah, it was good. Seth says, Hawk Blogger did a stream with Grant Cohn, who attended Niners OTAs. He didn't seem optimistic about this offseason. In fact, he was pointing out a lot of issues such as the aging roster and inquiries already. Grant's definitely a guy that is, and I think Grant does great work. You give him credit as far as being a guy with a lot of guts and balls, because it seems like if you're going to get Seth, you're going to get that access into the media, you're going to get into the building and like that. There's a draw a little bit to be very positive and to try to make sure you keep your access. Grant has no worries about that whatsoever. You have to give the guy some credit for having the audacity and guts at times to go as hard as he's been willing to go at the organization on that. But the points are valid. And I have said that I feel like the Super Bowl window for the Niners is really, really sliding very close to being shut. I think the only thing that's actually opened up the window this year for them, Seth, is the easiest schedule in the NFL. That's what's basically taken the window from closed to kind of like cracked it open a little bit, is because it's such a ridiculously easy schedule. So I can see where some of the lack of optimism might come with where that roster is at, especially because Seth, the Niners, kind of unlike even the Rams on this, are just they will hold on to guys to kind of the bitter end a little bit there. Kyle Juszczyk and Kittle had a great year last year, but re-upping him and making him the highest paid tight end. I think it's going to be the same thing there with Fred Warner. Trent Williams wants to play until he's 40. Yeah, I get where he's coming from. And let's not forget with this team, they've got like $80 million in dead money. There's been no team in the NFL that's won a division with $80 million of dead money on the books. There's been teams that have been able to make the playoffs with a lot of dead money on the books, 50 million, but not won a division. So there's some stuff there. It's kind of back and forth me on that, Seth. That schedule is just so tasty that I feel like they can just fall. They could be like a drunk that just falls on their face and still finds 10 wins. It's incredibly easy. But Grant's also got he might be a little bit more if you got the content creators that are glass half full and content creators that are maybe a little bit glass half empty. I'd say he might be a little bit more leaning on that latter side with it just a bit. Just a tiny bit. Jeffrey Jones, the 2014 team had only one Pro Bowl player on the offensive line, Max Unger. The rest was just a collection of guys that were committed opening holes for Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, I mean, you did have one Pro Bowler on the line there, Jeffrey. But I would say that's to say the way you put it there, you'd almost think that you had just some hardworking guys that weren't the most talented of players, just kind of getting the job done for Marshawn and opening up the holes. And that's where I would have to push back a little bit on that. You had a top 10 first round pick to Russell Okung, who had a fantastic year for you and who was a really good player here for you, and then went on to sign a big contract in free agency with the Denver Broncos. You didn't sign him as much, not because he wasn't talented or really good or able to get the job done or be at times even dominant in what he did as a player. You didn't re-sign him because of the fact that you had worries about his injury. James Carpenter was a former first-round pick that was your left guard. Talented player. Guy played well over 10 years in this league. Was he a Pro Bowler? No. But was he a very good player in this league? Yeah, you better believe he was. So I would say that the other positions, be it McQuiston or Breno Giacomini, you could sell me on that of those guys being kind of the way that you're describing on that. But I think that the other two guys on that line, Okung and Carpenter, were legitimately very good players. Okung made himself some Pro Bowls too. I think he even made Pro Bowls, Jeffrey, if I'm not mistaken, here in Seattle. Neil says, may as well run the wishbone. David says, Middlecoff's the man for sure. He does good work, David. Yeah, he does good work. I like his pairing there with Cowherd at times because I think he can sometimes keep Collins' feet on the ground with some of the football takes. CD Woods, hey-o, since we are talking about running the ball, what do you think K9 needs to do to get a contract extension? Full healthy season, Pro Bowl year, taking a team-friendly deal? Probably would have to be a fairly team-friendly deal, where maybe he goes through the first 4 or 5 games of the year, lights it up. Team says, okay, we're going to give you a contract, but we're going to give you kind of that Chuba Hubbard kind of contract that the Carolina Panthers gave him, or we're not going to break the bank for you, but we'll give you a tidy sum. I think that's about the only pathway for that to happen, CD. I think if he gets through a full year and he goes out there and puts a 1,500-yard season up, I think he will have priced himself outside of Seattle's range of what they want to pay him. Because I think there will be teams now with what's going on in the NFL where in prior years, a guy like Walker might make the market and there's a very cold market for him. This is going to be a year where I think he makes the market if he has that kind of year, and there would be actually a pretty hot market for him. You saw this last year with all of the players that were getting contract extensions in free agency that were running backs. Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. Guys were actually getting some fairly significant money versus other seasons in recent years where nobody was getting paid. So it's going to be probably a pretty hard uphill battle for him to get the extension here in Seattle. I think that John also might be a bit hesitant, CD, to giving out any kind of contract extension to another running back. He's kind of been bit by that. The last couple of extensions that he's given out has not worked in his favor. But I do think that certainly there's a Pro Bowl kind of year there for Kenneth Walker, that there's definitely the potential of that for him to make it happen. Hey, Zena, how's it going? How you doing? It's good to see you. It's good to see you. I just have a hard time seeing it, CD. I don't know if they would. I don't know if they would feel confident enough that his health is going to hold up long term, even if he went out and had that kind of year. But you never know. That's a tough one for me, kind of a coin flip. Little Dallas Cowboy says, tell me why the net worth of the Cowboys tripled in the Dak years, went from $5 million in 2016 to 13.5 as of 2024. And JJ's not going to let go of his cash cow. JJ's a businessman. Dak is a businessman. Absolutely is. I think that people have been kind of inferring a little bit recently in recent years with Jerry Jones that that's a little bit what's going on. I mean, it's kind of like what you get as far as like, I get blown away, but like they have tours through the Cowboys facilities there. So like you're there like lifting weights in the room, you're talking to your guys, you're just pumping weights, and all of a sudden some looky-loos just come walking across the ground. Hey, look, it's Dak Prescott. Look, he's in there lifting weights. Hi, Dak. Hi, Dak. Dak, let me take a picture of you, Dak. You're just in there just trying to lift weights and like, what is going on? It's just a weird situation. And Jerry's a guy that is, you're right. He's got his model, and his model's not necessarily winning. It's being the Dallas Cowboys owner and being a little bit more smoke and mirrors than actual tangible, really great play on the football field. But it's also too where the valuations in one place, little Dallas Cowboy, and cash in hand, cash in pocket is a whole nother thing. Because with your Dallas Cowboys that you've been one of those teams very hesitant to bury void money years and to stretch the cap out as much as you possibly can, to add as many players as you possibly can to the roster. Jerry has lamented that over and over again, that teams are doing that. It's because he doesn't have the money to do it. He doesn't have those big hundreds of millions of dollars in the coffers to kick into the escrows to sign those contracts. So he's got to be a little bit more piecemeal about it. So that's where the valuation's in one place, but valuation, of course, is kind of imaginary dollars. $14 million is what you could get if you sold them, but it's not actually money that you have in hand. And this is why, little Dallas Cowboy, you're seeing so many organizations, and not just in NFL circles, by the way, but this is why you're also seeing across the sporting landscape so many owners that are selling out parts and pieces and parcels of their team to get an injection of cash into the team so that they can sign these kind of contracts. I think Jeannie Buss just sold off some of the Lakers to make this happen. We have the Raiders last year selling off the 10% to Tom Brady so that Mark Davis could get a little bit of a cash injection. We just know with Jerry Jones that he would never do that. He would never give up a piece of the team to make that happen. It's my team. I'm going to do it my way. All right. It's Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones' team. It's going to be my team until I die. It's going to be my son's team until I die. Then it's going to be his son's team. It's a legacy. That's what you not understand, little Dallas Cowboy. It's a legacy. Legacy we're running here. Dallas Cowboy, you need Arch. You guys do need Arch. Arch in Dallas, it would be fun. That would be fun. CD Wood says also, by the way, not a Bears fan. All Hawks, baby. Sorry for the confusion. My bad, CD. I thought I was getting the Bear vibe. I thought you were a Hawk fan. I was like, I roll with a Bear fan. Gibson DK never lived up to expectations, but he still had some really good season numbers wise here. Yeah, I think it's fair on both sides of this. This is where I go, the mutual parting of ways, where there's not the bad guy, where I think both sides have probably a bit of a leg to stand on. From DK's standpoint, to say, look, I was never the most targeted player on the team. You never did a good job of making me a focal point. It took you 6 years just to use me even out of the slot from time to time to get me some more touches in there. You didn't do the most you could have to get the most out of me. And so I want to go to a place that's going to do that. And then Seattle on the other side of that could say, look, a 5-year contract at $30 million a year, your route running is not refined. Your hands have not come forward at all. You still have issues in contested catch situations, which should be situations that you dominate. We can't throw a fade ball down by the end zone because you're just not going to catch it. There's no point in even running that play. So I think that's where both sides, to me, on that Gibson, both kind of had a ground to stand on a little bit with that, and where it makes it fair that you get to that parting of ways. Nick says, Jack Slaughter is a name I'm paying attention to this year. Word is he's the top center prospect and would have been this year if he came out. Ooh, love it, Jack. That's a hell of a center name right there. Slaughter snaps the ball. Spears the men in front of him. Jack Slaughter. Yeah, that's a great name. I haven't checked him out yet. I'll take a look at the tape on him, though. Gets me hyped. Nick says, Portis for Bailey. One of the rare win-win for each team in the trade. Yeah, it really was. Both teams really came out well off the back of that one. You love it as a Bronco trade, though. If you could pull something like that off again, where you get a lockdown Hall of Fame cornerback that you trade for a top-end running back. I mean, be like flipping Kenneth Walker right now and getting like Derek Stingley. Just a phenomenal trade. Gibson says it'll be interesting to see how the wide receiver core does with Darnold. I think we need to get the run game going, and hopefully tight end can get involved as well. Agreed. Yeah. It's going to be very much of the key is that you got to relieve a little bit of the pressure off Darnold to get the best out of him. Not that he can't deal with pressure or he can't work off script sometimes. He can. But just that to get the best version of himself, these other things need to be on point. And the 12 personnel, 2 tight end looks, 21 personnel, you're going to get a lot of that, Gibson. And certainly with Arroyo here, you got to figure that they're going to have their share of packages just at the very least to get him involved. Say nothing to still having Fant and Barner on the roster. But yeah, well said. AI, unless the running back is a Hall of Fame, better to let them walk rather than a second contract. Look what happened to Alexander after he signed the extension. Fell off a cliff. I agree with you, man. I think that this is just where you have rule of thumbs that are played out and that are hardlined. And that, look, you can find exceptions to the rules, but lean into the rule. And I think the general rule of thumb is that historically speaking, it has not been smart money to give running backs big contracts. Just isn't. I know it worked out well for the Eagles, but part of the reason that worked out so well for the Eagles was the fact that they had the offensive line in place to get the most out of him. And even that becomes an outlier. I agree. Femi, you're going to go to Spaceballs 2 when it comes out, B? I don't know, man. I mean, no John Candy. We've learned with a lot of these movies where they take like over a decade to get a sequel out, especially comedies, like Dumb and Dumber, for instance, or Stiller did the one with the male models. It just tends to be where you kind of lose the energy, you lose the juice a little bit. And boy, the guy who made it is 90 years old now. I don't know. We don't have a great track record of directors in their 90s kicking out very good films either. Not a lot of them done it, but I'm gonna be a bit hesitant on that one. With being hyped up on that one. Same thing with the remake of they're doing of Police Squad. I think that one's going to be probably a pretty big failure as well. I can't believe they kicked out the original guy who did he had a whole script and everything to do the reboot, and they were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go with Seth MacFarlane instead. Yeah. Brian E. Kubiak's going to have a fullback in the system. I'm only curious as to who's going to line up as a reliable full-time fullback. Either way, run the damn ball. Run that damn ball. Run that damn ball. I think Hoots is going to be your guy there with it, Brian. I think he's going to be heartily in that spot, but it doesn't mean there aren't going to maybe be some times there where you got the tight ends flowing out of that kind of fullback look from time to time too. So there'll be a little bit of a mix, but I think Hoots is going to be your main guy on that. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $5 donation, Kevin. I really appreciate you for that, brother. Sale of the Lakers at $10 billion. WSH Com sale at $6 billion. Washington Commanders sale at $6 billion. Let me say that right. Where did the Hawks sell, if you had any guess? Also, JA to the Ravens. Did we miss out? Love the noon shows. Well, thank you for that, Kevin. I really appreciate that. And so we got the Commanders selling at $6 billion. In looking at the research from my perspective on this and kind of tracking how these teams sell, Kevin, it kind of seems like every about, let's call it about year and a half, every year and a half, every NFL team is going to gain in basic valuation, just my opinion, about $500 million every year and a half. So some of it is a little bit of the next man up and how fast you buy. If you have a team like this year that came up for sale, it'd probably be with Commanders about a year and a half approximately going for $6. It's going to be about $6.5, a little bit over $6.5 billion for the next team that becomes available in the NFL. There are teams that are going to have a little bit of a higher valuation than other teams. So like little Dallas Cowboy was saying, at $14 million for the Cowboys, they're going to be a higher valuation team than even the Seahawks are. That stadium comes with them and all that. That's part of the valuation. The stadium doesn't necessarily come with the Seahawks on that. So that's kind of the important part of that, I think, a little bit, is that not every team is going to be in the same place. But in general terms, in general NFL teams that are in kind of the same spot, this is the way it works. So if you sold it today, if Jody sold this day and it was worth $6.75 billion, if she waits till 2027, now it's going to be worth $8 billion. And the thing that I've been wondering about with Jody on this is if not, she's doing a little bit of letting things go as long as she can on the Hawks with this, on the sale of the Hawks, because every year and a half, it's an extra $500 million of valuation back to the team. and especially with us understanding with Jody, Kevin, that she wants to buy a piece of the team after she sells it, that this is how she gets that piece, is just keep getting the valuation to go up, and now she can have a bigger, larger chunk to come in there and make that play. So about every year and a half, about $500 million. It'd be about what I'd say. Jair Alexander going to the Ravens. We would not have gotten him for the same contract that he signed the Ravens, first off. He did absolutely target in on kind of the Ravens and say, okay, I'm going to go here because of a couple reasons. He gets to go to his college teammate. Lamar Jackson and him both played at Louisville. He gets to go to certainly a Super Bowl contender. There's no doubt about that. He gets to go to a stacked defense. He doesn't have to carry the line on that. And then he gets the opportunity with this deal to be in the right place for the prove it deal. So I signed a 1-year, $4 million deal that could be worth up to $6 million. I go out there, I ball out this year. I'm 29 years old after this year. I can go get that big monster extension now somewhere else if I can go play for a full season, if I can go prove that my health is legitimate. So I just don't think that we had the same offering on the table that the Ravens were going to get here for Alexander in his situation. And that's where we sometimes talk about it's not always a destination location, the Pacific Northwest. For some of these guys that are out in the South or went to college in the East Coast, they want to stay out there. It's a really big country, and not everybody wants to come out that far in that way, which is understandable. Completely understandable there, Kevin. So I don't think we missed out on that. I just don't think we had much of an opportunity, and I think we can't undersell as well, Kevin, that John Schneider has a lot of connections to the Green Bay Packer organization, and I think that if there was any chance that he even had slight interest into Jair Alexander, I'm sure one of the next things that he would do would be making calls to Green Bay and inquiring about where the status was of Jair, what was happening, what was the cause of these injuries, what's going on with his mentals. I'm sure that there was probably a little bit of that too that was baked in. But thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the donation, man. Very kind of you. Pumpkin, do not stand on that. Do not try to stand on that. It is not going to hold your heavy ass. You are way too big a girl for that. There's 30 pounds. That thing is not going to hold 30 pounds. Barely holds a helmet. Little Dallas Cowboy. Hey, Brandon, what's your opinion on Barry Sanders behind the early 90s line? What's your thoughts on LeBron turning 41 and still dominating kids half his age? I'm not a hater of LeBron. I am a Jordan guy, Dallas Cowboy. And when it comes down to who's the all-time best, to me, it's Jordan. I think there's a real difference-making quotient to Michael. It's cool LeBron's doing what he's doing. And I don't like to throw allegations around without any, kind of proof. But I think that we're going to come to find out one day that LeBron was aged up to the nines. And that the reason that you have the guy playing like he is at 41 and still able to do what he's doing when no other basketball players were able to do that you get Michael Jordan up around in that age and, he's not prime Michael Jordan. He's out there shooting jump shots. I think it's a little bit suspect. It's a little suspect there with LeBron on still doing this at 41 and rolling like this. I can't prove it. It's something I generally think. Barry Sanders is, to me, the best running back probably that's ever played the sport. I think it's debatable. You can sell me on maybe a Jim Brown. You can sell me on a Walter Payton. But I think that with Barry, he went to a Detroit line organization that was historically bad before he got there and was historically bad after he left there. And there wasn't anything that he could do about that. I think that he didn't have the best of offensive lines working in front of him. I don't think he was ever really given a legitimate quarterback, unless you want to call Scott Mitchell a legitimate quarterback. So defenses could make him a focal point, and then he didn't have the best blockers up front to make that happen. Say nothing of the defense was okay throughout his time there at best. And so Barry was a guy that succeeded and balled out in an environment that wasn't necessarily set up for him to go ball out. And maybe, he could still be good, but he was just, there was just something different about him. There's a couple of athletes in the 80s that I feel like were just, there's a little bit of the thing you can do, Dallas Cowboy. You would look at every other generation prior and you go, well, look at those guys. They were old and slow in their time. And, okay, they dominated for their time, but this is a new era now. And that kind of guy couldn't now. Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Barry Sanders. I think any of these four guys are kind of an any era kind of guys. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, wherever you want to point, these guys could have played. and would have been great players at that. They were just kind of separate special athletes from the 80s. They were different. Maybe Dion in there too. You could maybe throw in there on top of it. But Barry's one of my all-time favorites. He's probably my favorite back of all time. I mean, he was bringing out the jukes and the stop and start and the jump cuts before anybody else. He kind of invented a whole bunch of moves that running backs now just do standard that wasn't as much a thing prior to him coming in. It was more of a, the juke prior to Barry, little Dallas Cowboy. It was more of like a sway thing. It was more kind of like a shake and bake. It was a little bit more of you're gonna get your shoulders into it, And with Barry, it was the feet, pop, 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 like little typewriter keys coming off, pop, 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 and just nobody was else like him. Brian says, "Oh, good. Was afraid Zena wouldn't fart before she sat down." You're right, Brian. Archer's still got to prove it on the field. He does still have to prove it on the field. I think he's going to be a good player, though. Every time I've seen him and what he's done, that mobility he's got with that Manning arm. Jessica Beska. I love that name, Jessica. What's up? DK was a good player with not so good hands. The hands never came forward. They didn't, Jessica. And if you're going to be a bigger 6'4" guy, long arms, the change of direction is going to be impeded. I would argue that you're almost a little bit physically prevented from ever being a pure route runner and really getting that fully refined. And that's a little bit of something that's outside of your control at that point by the nature of just how big you are. I think that when it does come to the hands, to your point, that's the place that you can improve and you can get better and you can work at that. And the fact that the hands never really came forward, and especially the contested catch, where he's got a guy pushing on him or grabbing or knocking up against him, it's like it just threw him off completely, and he could not reel the ball in at times. He'd give you some rare moments where it happened, but it was rare moments in there in those kind of situations, and it was frustrating because it was kind of a way he had to win to dominate because the route running was never going to be top shelf in that way. Nick says, the real question is if K9 goes off this year and stays healthy, we could find ourselves in a not so great position, maybe tag and trade if that's the case. Hard to say on that because there's a couple of guys you might be in position to have to tag and trade instead, or just tag in general instead, Nick. You have Boye Mafe, you got maybe Reek Woolen goes out and balls out. Those are positions that are going to be more valuable positions, so more of a reason to put the tag there to them at that point. But if you get those guys signed or they don't earn their extension and Kenneth's the guy to do that with, you could do that. The nice part about the franchise for the running backs is that it's a little bit of chunk of change, but it's not going to break you over the back. It's not like a $30 million 1-year hit or something like that. It'll be a bit of a conundrum they'll find themselves, though, if he does go that way with it. Jeffrey says, good point about the 2004 offensive line being better than I remember, but neither Okung or Carpenter made the Pro Bowl that year. Only Okung was an alternate at center. Yes. Yes. But remember, again, with the Pro Bowl stuff, a lot of the Pro Bowl is lineage. A lot of the Pro Bowl is legacy. A lot of the Pro Bowl is you've already put the hay in the barn and maybe you're not even having a good year, but your reputation gets you in there. When it comes down to how they played that year, Okung and Carpenter, when they're on the field and they're playing, they played really good ball. Carpenter was that year probably a top 7 left tackle in the sport. Carpenter is probably a top 12 left guard in the sport. They were better than average, and that's where you got to get into those kind of, I think the different levels where you got all pro, you got Pro Bowler, you got better than average, you got average. I would say that they were probably somewhere in that year between better than average and Pro Bowl, maybe not quite getting to Pro Bowl level, but still playing really good football. I think some of it, too, had to do with the fact that there were some, I can't remember if Okung was injured that year or not. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, it was an offensive line that didn't have a lot of Pro Bowlers. I don't think the requirements there for Pro Bowlers as much as the offensive line to put a good one together needs to be not having any weak links. And you've got at least the passable players across the line getting the job done in their position, being at least a league average. And then you have some quasi potential difference makers in there and around in there. Yeah, so, Russell Okung didn't make the Pro Bowl in 2013 there, Jeffrey, but Russell Okung did make the Pro Bowl in 2012, the year before. And he did make the Pro Bowl again in 2017. So probably fair to say in 2013 wasn't like, a shell of himself, so to speak, on that. But shoot, Carpenter played 11 years in this league. Had a good career. Larry says, can the Seahawks have a similar duo running game as the Lions, Gibbs and Montgomery? Sure. It's certainly, you've got the talent there to do it. You've got more of the dedication on your offense to run it. I think you could say the talent is fairly equivalent to what you have in your running back room, Larry. Yeah, why not? I think so. Brian says, the trailer for the Naked Gun film is not a good sign for that film, B. It's not. And Seth MacFarlane's the wrong guy to bring in there to do this kind of humor. He just is. I know he does the whole satire thing with the Family Guy stuff, but it's a different kind of satire to me than what the Naked Gun had done. And I feel like those guys had earned the right to keep running their deal. Give them another run at it. Let those creative guys that created that whole standard. Those are the guys that created Airplane, the Naked Gun. It's their thing. That's their thing. Use those, but that's Hollywood for you. Like, this is why Hollywood's failing. The straightforward, easy stuff they get wrong. El Nino Berry just needed a good quarterback. He did, man. Those boxes would be stacked all the time. Defenses would just hone in on him. You didn't have to worry about any of the quarterbacks there with Detroit. They did have a good, Herman Moore was a good receiver. They had some good receivers there, but just the quarterback position was just awful. Nick, am I crazy for wanting to do some funky sets with Barner lining up at fullback? Dude loves to run block. No, he's really good too as a block on the move, which is what you have the fullback do, is essentially, you got to go block in space. I need to go run 10 steps before you're going to go get to the block. Can you get there and time it up right? Can you hit the guy square? Can you land the block and then drive him? I think Barner can definitely do that stuff. It does get difficult at times for the fullback position when you get the guys up around 6'4", Nick, because it's so much of a leverage war win there in the hole when you're taking on the linebacker. I got to get up under his pads, and at 6'4", I just can't get low enough to get that win. But there's certainly a lot of times and a lot of teams you can find in recent years that have used the tight end in the fullback position in just this way, especially with the lack of fullbacks coming out of the draft in recent years. I remember Billy Sims, Greasy. He won didn't he win the Heisman twice? I want to say he won the Heisman twice. Patrick, is Marshawn Lynch a Hall of Famer? Maybe not first ballot. I would give you the two opinions on this one, Patrick. My opinion and what I think is going to go down with the writers. My opinion is Marshawn Lynch is at the very minimum, he is a modern day Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell was a guy who didn't have the necessarily 10,000 yards rushing, but his impact on the game as a running back could not be denied. And that you had to put that guy in the Hall of Fame. I think Marshawn Lynch, bare minimum, should get in there for that reason, and that he was that. More of a successful career, you could say, than Earl. More overall success in what he was able to do for his teams in playoff success, getting to a couple of Super Bowls and being a driving force on those two Super Bowls. So that should put him up over the top. Unfortunately, my opinion comes back on this to the other side of it, and then I think the sports writers who vote on this may hold him to account for the fact that he didn't do the interviews. Sports writers can be very, very childish in this way, and they've got a lot of ego in this way. And Mr. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Well, we're going to make you pay the price for that now. We're not going to let you in the Hall of Fame now because you did that. How dare you not talk to us? I worry that there's going to be a little bit of that with the media on this. I hope not. They shouldn't. But I could see it going down that way. Billy Sims, man. There's a deep dive name there. Billy Sims. Gibson, remember Falk in college? You should have gotten the Heisman over Tretta. Yeah, Gino Tretta got it because he was in Miami, and Falk was at essentially, TCU, or not TCU, but San Diego State. So that small college thing kind of just, it's almost a little bit like the thing with Genty, right? Like Ashton Genty finishes second in the Heisman, but I think we're going to come to find years down the line, he should have gotten it. I mean, I know Hunter's awesome and all that, but just my opinion. Yeah, Sanders getting caught speeding. And people go, why'd he drop? Why'd he drop? Exhibit A. Oh, Greasy says Leslie Nielsen was stupid funny. Oh, he was. You could still go back and watch those Naked Gun movies, and you're going to find yourself laughing. It's very, very funny stuff. And the jokes that they would have were just every 3 seconds there's a joke or a bit that they're throwing at you. What are you doing? What are you doing? She's on the move. Look out. I think the Brandon Oman, Earl Campbell was legit. Love watching him run those days. Yeah, he was a good player. Big old thighs on that guy, man. Big old thighs. Okay, what are we doing here? Let's I'm almost done. We're wrapping it up. I'll be with you in a sec. We'll be with you in a sec. God bless Leslie Nielsen. Yes, sir. Archie Griffin, that's what I'm thinking, Gibson. He won it twice. Okay. I get Sims and Griffin mixed up for whatever reason. That makes sense. Yeah, if he meets with me, he says Genty should have gotten it over Travis. Genty just had one of those years where it's just like, it was ridiculous. But that's, to me, the comparison is sort of the Toretta getting it over Falk. Kind of the same sort of thing to me. Brian says Seth MacFarlane better singer than comedy guy at this point. Yeah, exactly. And there's a whole reason there. And I know people like Family Guy. I'm not trying to crap on Family Guy. It's good for what it does. But there's also there's a thing that, reason that you get like the Simpsons writers and the creators didn't really like that show, and South Park guys don't really like that show. And, they just kind of look at it as you're just stringing together a whole bunch of bits that have no interconnectivity to them. You know what I mean? And it's not you actually putting together something that's got like a narrative spine. It's just you just throwing jokes randomly here and there and stuff. So I get where they're coming from on that with it. There's a place for it, I suppose, but shouldn't be a Naked Gun movie that humor then goes to. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a good fitting. Nick says Ted's hilarious. The show might be better than the movie. I haven't seen the show. I'm gonna have to check it out. And I'm not anti-McFarlane by any means, but you gotta stay in your lane. You gotta stay in your lane. Don't go into my classic lane. Don't go into Naked Gun, especially when the creator, and I was just listening to the interview a couple days ago with the creator of the Naked Gun, kind of lamenting that they cut him out and that he had a whole script for this remake and to redo it and all that. It had it all in place and they tossed it all out. It's like, with that guy's track record, really? You guys, but that's Hollywood for you. Yeah, that's Hollywood for you. All right, well, we got ourselves about an hour and a half in today. I think we will put a button on the show today here and do a little bit of wrapping up. Do please, as I said, just hit that like button. Zena here she'd appreciate it. Like button going right over her face. If you hit that like button, helps out the channel, helps me grow, helps me show, all that other good stuff. Couple of programming notes here for you guys. We're coming back tomorrow, and we're going to be looking at the big swing trades we can possibly make. Actually, 1 second here. Be right back. Oh, thank you for bearing with me on that. Kevin Bolin, for the $10 donation, Kevin. I thank you for that. Very kind of you, brother. Says fullback trap a threat this year. Also, Oots pick in the 5th. Did you ever do a second thoughts replacement pick had we not chose Oots? Still rubs me wrong since an early late round pick, your go-to taco shop. Well, let's take a look. First off, thanks again for the donation. Fullback dives. You definitely have it in your playbook to run it. Kubiak ran it last year, Kevin. The hard part to make the prediction on Oots running it versus how they ran it last year with the Saints is that you did it with Taysom Hill, who was a very competent runner with the ball if you gave him those fullback dives. But that would be the look that they would give. They bring a guy in motion. They would have Taysom in the fullback role. Everything would look like it's either going outside zone or it's going to go to Kimura, and then you just do the quick fullback dive in there to Taysom Hill, and he was pretty effective in running it. I would think that you would then have Oots then run that play like that at that time and have him in there and do it, because it is kind of a staple of the offense a little bit, I would say. But I don't know if you're going to run a high amount just because Oots wasn't really a guy that he played fullback. I don't know what he can really give you as a fullback, as a runner with the ball. I would say that. As far as the draft goes, I don't remember at the time thinking that there was somebody else that I was rather having in that moment. You were to that time at that point of the draft in a pretty deep spot of the draft where, I mean, that's at the end of the 5th round. So you're pretty much to a 6th round territory by the time that you take Oots. So if I look into the 6th round right now, I think the guys that I would look at that would have been names that I think I would have been potentially in on or would have been interested on, there's not a lot there, to be honest with you. I mean, really, Chase Lunt. You went with Cable Dew, so you kind of liked Cable doing 16 picks later more than you liked Lunt from Seahawks perspective, which was kind of odd because they met with Lunt. And then the other guy that stood out to me that I looked at here would have been Dorian Strong, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. I liked his tape quite a bit. I think he's on the rise. I think he's going to be a good player for the Bills. That was a really solid selection for them. But you got to that spot in the draft, and we kind of knew this going in, that once you get into the almost middle of the 5th round onwards, there's definitely at that spot, Kevin, that's where you're going to get that huge drop off. And it's going to be significant as far as that goes. So it wasn't, I'm okay with the Oots pick because there wasn't just a lot of guys left in there at that point. It was pretty lean as far as your options go there. And especially it is a necessity of this offense. It's hard to just take the tight end and kick him into fullback, kind of as I was discussing just above there on the question about Barner running it, in that offensive coaches don't tend to want to put the tight ends in the fullback position because they can't win the leverage war because they're too tall. So you can't just sort of retrofit in the fullback and make it work that way. You got to get the pure fullback who's going to be a 6 foot fire hydrant, essentially, and which is what Oots is, right? He's about as wide as he is tall. And so you need that kind of body style, going back to your Max Strongs or your John L. Williams or your Leonard Weavers. They've got to be built like that to go win the leverage war, because you're coming downhill and you've got to take the 4 or 5 steps to get into the hole. And then you've got to have the ability to then break down and get under the pads of the linebacker as you get into the hole to be able to control the block and to move him out of the hole. If you're high and that defender gets into you high and gets into your chest, now the defender can control you and where you go on the leverage. So you might be a big badass as a tight end at 6'4". You lose the leverage war against a guy 6'2", 6'3", who's getting up into you, or even a linebacker 6 foot who can get up into you and is a kind of a master at getting off blocks. They're going to be able to peel your block off that much easier, that much quicker, because you're just too tall. So this is why it's kind of a necessity to get more of that kind of lower to the build guy. There wasn't a lot of fullbacks in this draft. Does Oots last into the 6th round? If you wait till there, maybe not. But if you don't get Oots, who's the other guy in this draft you would look to get at that point? Nobody else was really left to be available. And so you're probably going to have to go into the open market and go find somebody. And maybe as much as there could be an argument there, Kevin, that you could have gone out in the open market and found a competent capable fullback then and not had to give up a pick to do it. But it was the second to last pick in the 5th round that you took Oots. So it was pretty late. Taco shop wise, I actually don't, when I make tacos, I don't like going out and getting tacos. And there's a couple of specific reasons for that. Number one, a lot of the taco shops, especially down here in Southern California, they utilize the cheapest possible ingredients at every possible spot of the building of the taco up. And what I like doing it at home is that I can go get fresh ground beef. I can go get cheese that's not, the cheese that they get that's the pre-sliced cheese, it's got all of that like stuff on it to keep it from molding, but it makes it taste different too. It's not as good tasting as when you freshly slice the cheese and fresh lettuce and all of that. I mean, usually the lettuce is pretty fresh in the shops, but that's what prevents me from going to get tacos is I just like making them at home better. It's just better tasting. And man, they've really gone low end, at least around here, as far as when you go to any of these kind of stuff places, get like a burrito and you're like, oof, it's not the best. I'm in Southern California. I don't like this burrito. Kind of odd, but I don't trust those taco shops, man. Too many cheap ingredients on that, Kevin. They go too light, man. I want the quality. All about the quality, Kevin. But thanks for the $10 donation, man. Appreciate you. Dogzilla says, I think today is the 50th anniversary of Jaws. Jaws. The movie that traumatized me as a child to the point I could not even get in a pool if there wasn't somebody else also in the pool. And my childlike thinking on this was that I was such a good swimmer that when they released the shark who had climbed through the drain and then popped out of the drain in the pool, that it's the old thing of like, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be the fastest person, not the least, not the slowest person. So I would always think, well, if there's somebody in the pool, at least maybe I can swim my happy ass out of there before the shark can get to me. That movie messed me up. I still can't go more than waist deep if I'm walking in the ocean either. It's still in there somewhere, rattling around that fear. Nick says Marshawn shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if Alexander isn't. Sorry, but not sorry. Oh, there we go. Bold take on that one. Well, we'll see if either of them can get in when it's all said and done. Marshawn's going to have a hard time, I think. But we'll see on both. We'll see. I mean, Sean's going to have a hard time, I think, but it's possible both could get in. You can make an argument for either. From where I stand on it, just my take on it, I would give Marshawn the nod over Sean myself. If I've got to pick one or the other, I would go with Marshawn first. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thanks for the $2 donation. Just ask Darren Waller, who retired because of fullback. Oh, did he? Was that his reason on doing it? Yeah, tight ends don't like doing it. It isn't fun for them. They've got those big bodies and they're long, and it's a long day at the office if you've got to lay 15 of those blocks over the course of the game. And because there's not fullbacks coming out in recent drafts, a lot of teams have been driven to have to do this, especially with now, like we're talking at the top of the show, Feed Me, how there's been much more of a drive back to utilizing fullbacks and I formation looks and 21 personnel. Well, this is going to cause teams that don't have a fullback to do and rip the tight end to go make it work. And you are making it work at that point. You're not fitting to the ideal. And so it's something you can do time here and there, but for the most part, you want the pure fullback in there doing the job. This is why the Niners have held on to Juszczyk there, even as he's not been as effective a player as he was 3 or 4 years ago. Hard to find these guys. It's a certain type of guy. There's less of them coming out in the draft. So it makes it valuable if you can find one. Brian Myers B, is that a new flag behind you? Looks sweet. New flag behind me? No new flag. We got the new helmet put up and we got the Metcalf jersey up. But I just moved the 12th man flag to the side there a little bit. Slightly off screen. Just a little bit. Brian E says, Oots is the next Mike Allstott. God, I hope so. That guy was a lot of fun. Woo! What's up, King Bomber? He always catches right at the end, my man. How you doing? Addicted Brandon, Birria Tacos have you found since moving to San Diego? Ask Jake from Roundtable to hook you up when you are in LA. Google them if you haven't had it. I will take a look. Birria Tacos. Okay. I haven't tried them. I have not tried them, so I'll take a look. Definitely look. Wouldn't mind having a good taco place. Wouldn't mind it. Patrick says, what other hobbies do you do other than YouTube? It's a good question, my man. I love playing my video games, man. So I'm a big guy in playing video games. Hobby-wise, I don't know if I've got a ton of extravagant hobbies. I love doing my basketball and going out and playing ball and, whatnot with that. But I don't know if I've got a lot of other real hobbies other than that necessarily. I'm a pretty boring guy offline. I keep it pretty chill and just kind of hang. I like writing. I like creating. Patrick, eventually here, we're getting very close with AI and we're getting very close with animation. I've got a variety of scripts that I wrote back in the day. I want to bring those screenplays to life, and we're getting very much on the edge of being able to do that. So love to write, published. I got a published book out there on Amazon. So like doing that too, as far as time to time goes. Being creative basically is, if I'm doing anything creative, I'm a happy camper. Godzilla Jaws was brilliant, timeless, holds up to this day. I mean, that's hard. Movies date themselves like nobody's business, but Spielberg created a timeless classic there. I mean, they're going to be able to watch that thing 50 years from now, and I think that still will be considered a great movie. King Bomber, pretty good, Brandon. Middle of the dead season. Not even training camp highlights to get excited about. Not even OTA throws. Not even 7-yard out OTA Milrow to Cooper Cup throws. I know, man. It's definitely the dark times right now. This is where it gets to that longest part of the offseason where late June to start a training camp in July feels like about 2 years. But we're rounding the bend, man. We're rounding the bend. We're getting there slowly but surely. This close. Almost there. Gibson Olstad was one of the best running fullbacks of all times. I can't remember doing better. No, I don't think that there was ever a better runner of the rock fullback-wise than Olstad. And he was a fullback that did that. I mean, they'd give him snaps like a tailback, but he was fullback first and foremost. And he was, I think, by far the best. I can't think of even who comes close as number 2. I really can't. But there's been some good ones, but they tend to be blockers only. They don't get the ball like he did. And his highlights are still fun to watch. That guy was violent as they came as a runner. And boy, was he a load. Had those big-ass pads, those extra large pads on a big body already. Yeah. Crazy. All right, so we will wrap up on that note here today. I said a couple programming notes tomorrow. We're going to be taking a look at should the Seattle Seahawks take a big swing. They've got a lot of money right now to spend, and we're going to be looking at who the players could be that they could look out there and target. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking at guys that you're going to be aware of. The Trey Hendricksons, Jalen Ramsey's, Micah Parsons potentially if he becomes available, though we don't know what's going to go on with that situation. But I'm going to try to expand the list beyond that and look at a couple of other guys who could become available, if not now, before the trade deadline, if things can break a certain way. And if John's kind of side-eyeing those situations to decide whether or not now's the time to strike, before this training camp's the time to strike, before the trade deadline's the time to strike, where do you want to jump in there? And we're going to be discussing that tomorrow and getting into the depths of that tomorrow. I'm going to be out at training camp this year, 31st, the scrimmage game. You can catch me out there. I'll be at a training camp practice and getting out there to the scrimmage game on that side of it, as well as I'm trying to get to there's a senior ticket holder day there. So if there's somebody that has got season tickets and you're not going to go to training camp, but you have season tickets, if you can reach out to me by DM on Twitter or heyhawksnest@gmail.com. And let me know. I'd love to be able to do that because I could go get to another training camp practice if I can get the season ticket code hold. There's a holder code. If I can get that, then I can be able to go to one of these extra practices in there. So please do reach out to me. If you happen to have that, you're not going to one of the practices in training camp, I can get that code from you and I can go and check out the practice an extra day. That'd be pretty cool. But we'll be doing some meet and greets around that as well. I'll be letting you guys know and keep you guys all updated on that side of it as we do keep rolling here on that and keep it going. So good stuff on the horizon. A lot of stuff still racked up and going here as we'll keep this going throughout next week. We'll probably get a few shows in next week. We're going to be doing a little bit of a break here coming up. I've got some things to take care of. We're getting that slow season. There's covered all the topics at that point. And unless we get some breaking news, there'll just be kind of some short videos and stuff for a few weeks I'll be releasing as we kind of bend up into the season. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $5 donation. Kevin, appreciate you for that as well, for the double dono, bro. You were awesome. He says, Noah Fant as the Taysom Hill role, not one hole runs, but the flat stretch stuff. Love hole-in-the-wall taco shops. You got to ingest the germs to be stronger. That's right, man. You got to build up that immunity. It's the way to build up a strong immunity system, man, is just test it. Test it all to hell. Possible. It's possible that you could put Fant into that role. I it's kind of hard to exactly say, Kevin, for sure which guy could fit to it. Because you go, well, I go Barner's probably your better blocker on the move, but Barner's more of your pure inline guy. So you want to keep him in inline. So then that maybe means you're going to go grab one of your H-back type guys to be the fullback guy. H-back types and how they got developed in the first place, Kevin, where H-back wasn't always a thing. Essentially, H-backs came to be by pulling away from the fullback role. That's essentially what happened to fullbacks, is that they became H-backs. And so Noah Fant being an H-back, transitioning back to fullback in certain respects, not 24/7, but like you say, on little 1 yard run, maybe it's possible with it. I think that they would probably bring in a Charbonnet or a Martinez if there was actually a carry to be had there at fullback, but it's possible. There's some connective tissue there between those two roles and positions. It just comes back down to, again, Fanta in that, like I was talking about prior there, Kevin, when you go and you take a guy that's 6'4" into that fullback position, the threat of him as a blocker is kind of off the table because it's just hard for those guys at that size to get low to lay the blocks. But very hard to make a guess on this one, Kevin, just because it was Taysom Hill in the role prior, which was kind of the wide receiver, running back, fullback guy who's as unique as any puzzle piece as you have in the NFL. And then when you have them with the Minnesota Vikings had a pure fullback there when Kubiak was there last time. So they didn't use the tight end role for that there then. So I don't have a track record of teams utilizing it in recent history here. Teams that do utilize it don't have a lot of effectiveness. I don't have a lot of teams utilizing it who run this exact scheme, kicking a tight end into the fullback role. Instead, we have much more of a baseline of them utilizing a fullback. But it's just it is going to be hard to tell on this one because we're kind of starting anew on this and we don't have real true baseline with this team, with this personnel, with Kubiak to know just exactly how he's going to use it. I could throw a bunch of guesses at you, but none of them are really based in anything at that point until we see how they're really playing it in training camp or whatever else. But my guess would be a no on that. If you want to make me get off the fence and pick one or the other, I'd say Vance Wood would remain as an H-back and you'd have Ooch there as the fullback. Or if it's going to be a guy that's going to get carries, Damian Martinez or Charbonnet slides into the fullback role then at that point. I think they did do some of that with Charbonnet. I think he has been in that fullback dive role a couple of times here and there. Just a little bit. I wish I liked the hole-in-the-wall taco shops as much, man, but I don't trust the meat. It's the ingredients. Boy, they can get cheap with it now, man. You're eating cardboard and, plastic. It's pretty much it. Maybe where they could that cellulose that they put on the cheese. I hate that cheese. I can totally taste it. The cellulose cheese versus, the pre-shredded stuff versus when you shred, man, it's a big difference to me. Phoebe says, do you have a Hall of Fame trajectory for Witherspoon? Too early to tell on that one, Feed Me. He's not done, his first 2 years have not been necessarily Hall. He's been Pro Bowler, I think one of the years. So there's that, but just too early to tell on that one. King Bomber, personally, with the way Seattle has handled contracts, I don't think they're even in the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes. I don't think so either, King. I agree. I think it's worth discussing and talking about, but I don't think when you break all of it down, especially with his age being the real, I think, kind of separator here. You want to give that contract at that age after making that trade? No, I don't really want to do that. I think that they're probably not in on it as well. But I also think Cincinnati's kind of crapped the bet on this one where they probably should have moved him up until this point. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, big swing video would be super cool to watch. Hash up for sure. Well, we got it. We got it tomorrow, man. We're going to be hitting it up tomorrow for sure. King says Seattle isn't willing to give him a contract without him playing on the field in a Seahawks uniform, and he's not wanting to play without a contract. Well, I mean, they have traded for guys and signed them to extensions. So they've done that before without them having to play in the uniform. So Percy Harvin never played a snap, and you traded for him and you signed him. Different player, different time. Maybe they've learned their lesson with it, but they've shown a willingness to do that in the past. But we're in agreement. I don't think he's really as much on the table at this point for Seattle. Jar going for $6 million. Wish we could have won that at that price. Yeah, I would have loved to have got him for $6 million as well. I don't think Herbicide, that same deal was available to Seattle. I think he wanted to go to Baltimore. Baltimore said, okay, you want to come here? We want you, but we're not going to be able to pay you what you can get elsewhere. You get a 1-year, $10 million deal elsewhere. We're going to give you 1-4 with worth up to 6. And he seemed to want to go play with his college teammate on that Herbicide. I mean, the indicators on this one is just that he didn't probably want to come out to the Pacific Northwest and wanted to go to a true blue championship contender that is a championship contender walking into it. And it gives him a chance on that prove it deal to go out there and make a lot of money next year in a very potentially successful situation. I don't think we had much of a chance on that one. Nick says, man, one of these years I need to make it out to Seattle for training camp. Definitely on my bucket list. It's a lot of fun. It's such a cool environment out there, Nick. Beautiful day. The Pacific Northwest is at its best in July. There's no more beautiful place on planet Earth. You got the waters out there, the smell of grass, the sun glistening. It's a cool experience. Very cool experience. Nick to Brandon, don't you think Oots will get some reps at number 2 or number 3 tight end in Kubiak's offense? Yeah, but it's going to be pre-snap changes in alignment and whatnot. So it's going to be moving guys here, moving guys here, moving guys there. He starts at fullback, slides out to the 3rd tight end spot. It'll be kind of stuff like that. There's a lot of pre-snap motion and adjustments there, trying to get the defense looking at everything and kind of get them confused prior to the snap. So a little bit of that, but in general terms, not a lot of that. Very much a smattering, and partially because you'll have the tight ends on the roster. But some of this could be driven to Addicted to where this is where on some of these are really great questions from you guys Addicted that you guys are asking today. But I gotta also kind of say that on some of these questions, there's really no way to know the answer on these questions. I don't know if the team's going to carry 3 tight ends or they're going to carry 2 tight ends. I don't know that, and nobody knows that. And so to your point on that Addicted, if you're only carrying 2 tight ends and you're carrying Oots, then you're going to have a lot of situations where there are going to be some potential points there where Oots is going to be the 3rd tight end a lot more. But if you end up carrying 3 tight ends and then you're carrying 1 fullback, then Oots isn't going to probably get hardly but any 3rd tight end reps at that point. I wish I could give you a better answer on that one, but with these kind of questions, and these are great questions, and there are certainly things that I'm wondering about as well, but unfortunately, we just don't know how the team's going to balance the load of the roster. You only have 53 roster spots. And you got to pull from here to put there. You got to, we want 1 extra of this. We want 3 quarterbacks active rather than just 2 quarterbacks active. Okay, well, you're having to now kind of pull from other areas, and it's hard to know how exactly the team's going to want to pull from those areas to make this work. So you've got 3 real valid tight ends on the roster right now. I would think that there would be a pull in that then Addicted to say, well, we're going to roll with Noah. We're going to roll with Royal. We're going to roll with Barner. But they may come down to it saying, look, we only want to have the 2 tight ends. So it's going to be just Barner and just Arroyo. And so now Oots becomes the 3rd. So it's tough on that one, man. I can't give you a certain answer on that one. Just a little bit up in the air. A little bit up in the air. Kevin Mullen, thank you for another $2 donation, Kevin. I really appreciate that. 14 personnel. Arroyo Fant as the X and the Y. Oots Barner on the O-line. Possibly a way you could roll with it, Kevin. I have no reason that we can't. No reason that we can. And maybe that's the drive here where teams are going. You know, you're more of the 12 personnel, more of the 21 personnel, and then just more of the 13 personnel. Well, let's get to 14. I know there's a little bit of a joking in there, but I think also to your point, there's a lot of room there to where you do run sort of a 14 personnel, or you run basically 13 personnel. But then what you do with it, Kevin, is Arroyo does become your X. And I do believe that there's going to be certainly a want of a drive here to have Arroyo then in there as your X and then have the 3 tight ends in there. So kind of doing what you're saying, but rather than having Fant out there as the Y, or as not the Y, but as the Z, essentially, rather than have Fant be the Z, you just have him as an H-back or an inline guy there, and then Arroyo becomes your X, and that becomes kind of your big look. And can you imagine if you run that big look 14 personnel? Now think of it as you running the 14 personnel, but down by the goal line in red zone with Milrow running read option out of that. And some of the different flavor that you can throw at defenses down there in that red zone with that kind of look, especially getting them on their heels at the snap with thinking, man, we've got a lot of guys, a lot of beef here on this offensive line, right? A lot of beef with the tight ends. It's going to be hard for us to keep them back in the running game. We've got to really be concentrating on that prior to the snap. And now maybe you can catch him on the passes, especially with Arroyo out there, maybe in some mismatches here and there and how you can drive it. But I like what you're thinking, Kevin. Sign me up, man. Sign me up all day long, man. All day long. King says, I think that after the Percy Harvin debacle, they haven't done it since. I remember reading an article a while back how Harvin didn't really mesh with the room because he got a contract without playing, and the other guys they traded for, like Jamal Adams, Dwayne Brown, Sheldon Richardson, Ernest Jones, Quandre Diggs, Jadeveon Clowney, and a bunch of other guys I can't remember. Very true. You're right. They haven't done it. I don't think that we did it with Jimmy Graham either. I want to say we had Jimmy on the same contract. Yeah, so he didn't sign an extension with Seattle, to your point on that. He just came over in the trade, and then that was kind of that. So I think that the Harvin thing is absolutely a one that, regardless of whether they've done it before, again, which they haven't, just that being a situation that twisted badly as it did, and basically you got the worst end of, you were on the worst end, essentially, of a situation and how it could go in trading for a player blindly and then paying for that player. And that, as we saw with John when it came to the Malik McDowell situation, not going for Jalen Carter, that John definitely has a little bit built in, it seems like, where he's going to learn his lessons and not make the same mistakes twice, or not go down the road to making the same mistake twice, to your point on that. Yeah, well said, King. Patrick says, maybe not this season, but next season, I'm going to try to visit Seattle for a whole week and watch a game on Sunday. Any recommendations if you know any places? Well, I'm kind of out of the lurch a little bit because I'm in San Diego now, not in Seattle. So it's kind of harder to say on that. Where you'd really want to go on that. I mean, obviously you want to go take a look, check out Pike Place and go down to the pier and, get down to downtown Seattle. It's always cool to get down in there and check it out. But, yeah, I haven't been living in the Seattle area here for about the past 12, 13 years it's been since I've been up in that area of things. So I'm a little bit out of the realm on knowing what's what there with Patrick. But I'd absolutely recommend it. It's a great place to go check out a game, and you can go down there and pre-funk. A lot of cool bars down there to check out just right around the stadium. And it's a hell of an experience. Wish I could give you better recommendations. Hopefully somebody maybe in the chat's got some good places to recommend too, but I'm out of the loop a bit. Auxiliary, my neighbor down the lake, bought a Tesla Cybertruck. I'm nervous it'll blow up. I worry about if I got one of those Tesla Cybertrucks or whatever, like how the window, I heard about the one lady who got like she went in the lake and then she couldn't get the windows because they're automatic windows, couldn't get the windows off and you can't break the windows. Like, ugh, that's scary to me. We did really hope Arroyo throw arrives in Kubiak's offense. Not yet able to put a bet on it in Vegas. If I was there today, might go to the squad scrimmage to check him out. Let's go, man. I do too. If he can just come in and be a bit of a weapon in that first year. He doesn't have to come in and get 50 catches and 800 yards that first season, but just come in and be a mismatch weapon that we can kind of throw as a curveball at teams here and there that they have to account for. Jesus M says NFC West will be up for grabs in 2025. I think it is up for grabs, yeah. I think you have strong teams 1 through 4. It's historically been one of the most competitive divisions in football over the last 10 years. The stage is set for it to be that once again this year. It's also a division that has one of the easier schedules in all of football. Everybody in this division does, maybe with the exception of the Rams. So I think it's going to fit the form, and I think you can make an argument for just about anybody winning it outside of, I think, the Cardinals. I don't see the Cardinals having a pathway to getting the title this year. But I think they could still be good. I think they could win more games than they lose. I think they could get to the playoffs. They said the truck has 5 big seats, 2 in front, 3 in the back, plus space to carry crap. Spray made a point of saying it's not political. He just likes the truck, man. Just like the truck. Yeah, you got to do downtown Seattle during the day for sure. It's Patrick, I would definitely recommend doing that at least. That's just an experience, and you can kind of get a feel for the town, and there's plenty of little shops and things to check out. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $2 donation. How do you defend 14 personnel? Is it a run or a pass? My estimation on it would be that you would try to run it. I mean, if I have a team if I can trick a defense into staying in base personnel, meaning that they're going to have 2 corners out on the field, Kevin, and 2 safeties, now I've got all this extra beef and size. If I want to run outside zone to Arroyo's side, and let's say Arroyo's the X, and I've got the other 3 tight ends on the line of scrimmage, and I run out to Arroyo's side, now Arroyo's just got to pin his block on a cornerback. So I've got Arroyo blocking a cornerback. He's going to be able to set that edge, and as long as my other guys get the job done around the line of scrimmage, I could be pretty devastating with that. Or could you imagine him blocking to the edge, read option, so Milroe, read option to the running back, defense is sucked inside, Milroe goes to the edge. Now the key block becomes Milroe's going to get there with his speed. The key block becomes, can Arroyo land the block on the corner on the outside? And again, the advantage should be to the tight end in those kind of situations if you want to run something like that. And you guys we are rolling today. Martin Lawrence, thank you for a $5 donation. I appreciate you for that. We have such a stacked running back fullback group. It would be stupid to the point of negligence if we don't run the ball this season. Indeed, it would be, Martin, and definitely a big theme of this show, I would say as well. But yes, you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. It's really not going to be, and I can understand you having some concern and worry that this might be a hole that you run back into, Martin, that you've been in the past, and that this is something you're going to go back to once again. I would advise that this is really not a worry on the table at this point, Martin. It's not. Under Coach Carroll, you at times couldn't run the ball because your defense was very much faltering at the end of Coach Carroll's time here. You were behind in football games. Your defense was giving up points. You were having to match those teams points-wise, stack for stack, right? Those 2 Detroit games we played, got to score every possession. Got to score every possession. So when it comes to a lack of running the ball at the end of Coach Carroll's time in Seattle, that had more to do with the faltering defense. It also had to do with the fact that Carroll was not a guy that advised his offensive coordinators to use much of the running to the edges. You weren't going to do much outside zone run. He wanted A and B gaps. So your running game was highly predictable, number one, Martin. And you were trying to hammer the A and the B gap runs. And then you were behind a lot of games, / your defense was giving up a lot of points, and that was taking the ability to run the ball off the table consistently. So that's why that happened under Coach Carroll. Why it happened last year with Grubb is that we have a guy that wanted to throw the ball, that he's an air raid offensive coordinator that doesn't want to run the ball. And we can see that pretty concretely at this point. And so it was really about commitment with Grubb, but that was the sole reason. With Kubiak and with Shanahan and with this scheme and everywhere it's gone, you can track this scheme in any place that it's been, Martin, where it's at with Green Bay, where it's at with the Niners, where Kubiak was with the Saints last year, where Kubiak was with the Vikings when he was the offensive coordinator with them a couple of years ago. You can look at any coach basically running this scheme, and it is never going to be a commitment question. There's never like, well, that Shanahan scheme, they just don't want to run the ball. They just don't understand that's what they need to do. They will run the ball. So I can completely understand where you're coming from and that the past regimes recently have not been committed to doing that. That's not going to be the issue. It's really, can you be effective with it? Are your offensive line, is it going to get better? Are you going to be able to actually run block enough? Can your defense hold the line enough so that you're not behind in football games, so that you have to play from behind, so you have to throw the ball a lot? Those will be the keys on you getting something out of the running game now, Martin, but it will not be commitment. I 100% can tell you with 100% certainty, it's not commitment, and it's not the past issues that caused you under Coach Carroll to not be able to get things done as well in addition to that. If you're stopped this year, it's going to be for a new reason. It's going to be some other cause that's causing that to go that way with it. It won't be because of a lack of commitment. That is something that is absolutely, if there's one thing at the head of the stack of any coach coming off the Coach Shanahan tree, Martin, if there's one thing that they all have in common, if there's one common denominator that is undeniable, it is that they want to run the ball. It is that they are committed to running the ball. So that is there. That is going to be a part of this. That is absolutely will be a foundational point of this team. Whether it's effective or whether it can be really good in how you do it, that'll be another question. But you will at least you'll make the try of it. You'll make the run of it. Dogzilla Brando, you can stay in a room at my place anytime. Run around a black vertible vet too. Let's go. You're selling me here, Dogzilla. You're selling me. Let's go. Was it Raiders preseason? They're like $100. Oh, that'd be a lot of fun. Go see a Raider game. Go to Vegas, hang out in Vegas, see a Raider game. "14 personnel parade." I like that. 14 personnel parade. I might have to do a show around this. You might have just given me an idea on this one. 14 personnel, the new hotness. I got to work on the title. $49 tickets are deviously expensive. We're trying to keep those San Fran fans out of the stadium, man. Kevin Mullen with another $2 donation. Says 14 personnel, tight spread. Who's the best back for this? Oh, you're going to spread them out. So basically you're talking about going 4 wide basically with the tight ends. So you got Arroyo, Barner, Fant, and then we're going to push Oots out wide. So Oots will take a linebacker with him when he goes out wide. That's a tough one. How would you want to run that? If you're running spread, I think you'd want to get downhill. So probably like Charbonnet Martinez would be the one you'd want to run out of that, Kevin, because you just want to get downhill and attack the light front that you're going to be able to, there's a part of me that's pulled like, well, if I go 14 personnel, I go 4, they're all wide, then I'm going to maybe attack more edges with Walker there because the blockers to the edges, both my tight ends to the edges are going to get wins. But I think with that lightened box, this is a little bit like what Chip Kelly likes to do with his spread stuff. He spreads out his run game so that he can run power concept stuff. Especially with Charbonnet, you run some of the gap stuff where you pull. You got a light defensive box, then you kind of pull the gap stuff, and then have Charbonnet run behind it. I'd do something like that if I was testing it out. 14 personnel spread. I've never seen anybody ever run that, Kevin. I cannot ever remember anybody with a 3 tight end look and a fullback, but then you run them as wide receivers. You could maybe do some cool stuff with that where you line them out with 4 wide, Kevin, and then you bring one of them in motion like Oots comes back in motion prior to the snap as the lead fullback with some momentum prior to the snap. Kind of cool little flavor to it. Could be. You know what I mean? Thank you, though, man. Appreciate all the donos today from you, man. Very kind of you. All right. Well, we will put a bit of a button on this. Addicted Brandon 12s. I got to go. Wife and daughter need to go back. Got back today from 3 weeks in Asia. Need to go pick them up. Hopefully I had a great time there, Addicted. Thanks for checking out the show today. I do thank you guys today for watching as you guys have rolled with me on this new change of format. And I really, really do appreciate you guys for doing that with me. We'll keep the shows going on throughout this off season. Got a couple of others lined up here for next week that I'm really, really looking forward to. But we got tomorrow first and foremost, which is we're going to be looking at who Seattle can maybe make a big play for. And not just a big play for the names that you know that are on the table right now, be it the Hendrickson or a Jalen Ramsey, but for the guys that could become available. Exhibit Team A comes out the gate and they're 1-4. They've got Exhibit Player A, who's maybe due to be a free agent, and maybe now they're in a little bit of a sell mode. And now in their sell mode, you can strike at the right time to go add a player that can really help to go take you up over the top. So we're going to be looking at not just the guys that are out there and available on the market, but also the guys who could become available on the market. Because we want to dream. We're in the dream stage of the season here right now for 2025 and looking at what could be. And one thing that we're going to be looking at in next week's shows, one show that in particular I'm really been kind of building up towards here, is the show where we're going to be looking at what a championship season would look like, what it would take from your Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, they're not going to be a front runner. They're not going to be a team on paper that people are going to say is a title contention team. A team like the Rams in our division is going to be getting much more love nationally from the writers in that way, but it doesn't mean we can't. And what I've been doing with these shows and looking at individual players, looking at the Mike McDonald's defensive scheme and the improvements we've seen from that, looking at today's show and Kubiak and the instantaneous returns he can bring in the running game that he brought to the Saints and that he should be able to bring here, and that you can see how this team can come together for that championship contention to happen. Do parts have to improve? Do things have to come forward? Yes, but I wouldn't offer that it has to come forward in a major way. We just need to see the improvement and the growth from this young roster continue to rise. And if it can happen with a variety of guys happening at the right time, and there's a good reason to believe that, is you've had the Russell Wilson trade 3 years ago, and these guys now moving into sort of their prime state, into their best version of themselves, then now is the time that could be right for this to all occur. But we're going to build that case up slowly on next week's show. I'm going to put all of these parts together to try to show you how this grand plan can be implemented for this team to be that contending team next season, for us to get that sort of jump start where we might all be thinking a little bit of, well, it's probably 26 when this will all fully kick into gear, instead going, oh man, no, it happened in 25. Then it can be a season a little bit like 2012 where nobody's thinking anything's going to happen. And then you're suddenly by the end of the year going, look, we can play with anybody in this league. Like if we can just get past this Falcons team and we get to Niners next week, we got the Niners. We got them in the bag. And then bam, we're going to the Super Bowl, baby. We can do this. We can do this. So don't think it's not possible. I know the odds are long. I know that there's a lot of things on this team that have to come together for this to take flight in that fashion. But the team is doing things right, and there's a lot of reason to believe that it could occur if these things come together in the way that they need to. And I don't think it's pie in the sky. I don't think it's wishing on a shooting star for this to happen. The talent is true. The talent is right here. The coaching is right now. The money on the books is in a good place. All of the conditions are being prepped here for this thing to take flight. So have some hope for this upcoming season. Don't look at Vegas with its 7.5 wins and say, well, they always get it right. They didn't get it right last year. They don't get it right over the last 10 years. At 6 times over the last 10 years, they've got it really, really wrong. And the other couple times that they got a little bit closer to getting right, they were still pretty off. So have faith and hope of your Seattle Seahawks this year. Dream big. The talent is there. The talent is real. A lot of work to be done. We got to get through training camp. We got to have the youngsters develop. We got to have them start to take flight, a few of them, and become those difference makers on this squad. But you got a lot of the rest of the elements in place and set up for this thing to go full steam ahead here this upcoming season. So hopefully you guys are thinking big. Hopefully everybody is in on this upcoming year. And hopefully the Seattle Seahawks can reward us for our patience. It's been a couple of years here since we've had a contending team. And I know we are all ready to see this team finally reach that stage again so we can get excited about things and really have some hope that they can hit the ultimate highs once again. I will be back tomorrow, 12 o'clock, with another show here Friday with you guys, looking at those guys that we can go out there and grab out there on the open market, be it either available now or who might be available here coming in the near future. So do come check out the show with me tomorrow on that. Thank you guys for watching today. Please do hit that like button if you get the chance. I would really appreciate it. We got the tickets to the meetup event I've also included down in the description section below. If you're not aware, we're doing an NFC West roundtable meetup here in early October. It's going to be a Rams 49er game in LA. But if you do sign up and get tickets, $100 deposit, $300 tickets, that's going to get you access to the prior night event in the bar there. We're going to be doing a meet and greet, a little bit of a situation there the night before. We got the tailgating. You're going to be a part of that. And then also that does include the tickets for the game itself. So a lot included in that. Want to go down to LA, go check out the sights and sounds. I think we're down to 11 tickets left. So we are locked in on this event. We're going to get it rolling. So if you do want to be a part of that, do please join up there as well. I will be back shortly in less than 24 hours to keep hyping you up, to keep gassing you up. I don't care. I'm not one to gas you up falsely. You guys know that. I'll tell it to you true. I'll tell it to you real. If I don't think the team's going to be good, if I think they're going to be failure, I'll tell you that. I'll let you know. But if I think that they're going to be on the other side of it, I'm telling it to you true and real as well. And I think the Seahawks are getting on to the other side of it. I think it's only a matter of time. So dream big, dream large, but beyond all else, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.